Listen up, warriors, our scouts just returned with a tale worth hearing. Today's title, The Sword God. The world he once lived in was destroyed. People had to fight monsters just to survive, and he too spent his life doing just that. He thrashed the monster's face, causing blood to spill out. After knocking the monster down, he stood proudly with a sword in hand. And like that, day by day, a month, a year, and then years passed in the blink of an eye. With a single sword, he could cut down any monster. He felt no fear. He fought against gigantic monsters. He gave up. The world he lived in was gone. The very cause behind all of this. What a waste of his talent became his sword. While he was struggling against many demons, he got a bruise on his cheek. He said that it doesn't make him laugh. After this, he struck the monster back. The monster had red eyes and was gigantic. The monster told him that no matter how much he struggled, to him he was nothing but a worm. Hearing this, he lost his temper. He shrieked loudly and clenched his fist to knock him down. He bent in front of a monster having a single red eye, a curved sharp sword, and wearing a turquoise locket. The necklace was glittering, his eyes sparkled. While he was about to attack, a boy escaped, gathered some magical powers and flew up. He responded and attacked the monster's chest with a sword, which caused the special necklace to break. After this, the monster got out of control. He abused the boy. The glittering substance came out of the necklace, and the monster was shattered into pieces. Blood spills were scattered everywhere and even on the boy's dress. What a beautiful scene. Someone wearing black slippers was taking steps on the floor. A boy with a muscular body and messy hair, engaged in thought, was walking somewhere with a red light alert. Namsan Gate, B. Ranked C. Recommend rank C. The board had a precaution that no civilian was allowed. Please scan your hero registration number and unique ID. Non-registered heroes and civilians must refrain from entering. This was Seoul City, Yongsan District. The boy stood in front of the building gate. When he forcefully tried to enter the gate, a red light alert flashed with a pinching beep. An unregistered hero had forcibly entered the gate. He got into the jungle. A group of soldiers with arms said, "Hey, young man." One of them asked if he was lost or something. Another said that he didn't know what his situation was, but they happened to be heading out, so why didn't he come with them? He looked at those people suspiciously. A lady said to look at what he was wearing. Another replied that he didn't look like a hero at all. Sure, porters dressed more casually these days, but that outfit was a bit much. And what was with that bag? Maybe he was one of those clueless porters who got ditched by the heroes he came with. There was no way, right? The young boy said he understood what they were trying to say, but he had just gotten there. One of them, overjoyed, said that he totally got abandoned. A man who seemed to be disappointed said he had seen plenty of guys like him. He understood what he was thinking coming into a gate, but going gate hunting just of what he saw on TV or online was suicide. First, he should get officially certified as a hero and pass his training and testing. And this here was a C rank gate. If he wanted to start, he should go find an F rank one. The young boy replied that he understood they were trying to help, but honestly he was not feeling very grateful. They looked at him furiously. Their leader came in the way, stopped them from attacking him, and asked everyone to chill. One of them asked what the hell was wrong with this psycho. He told their Hyung not to stop him this time. Forget it. If someone was going to brush off concern like that, then the only way they would learn was through experience. He walked away from them. Gates were nothing like what he saw on TV or online. They were harsh, unforgiving places. He passed by a colossal monster with a long horn and teeth. He closed his eyes and remembered something. 10 years. He attacked after his eyes gained a yellow sparkle. He jumped up and separated the monster's head from its body with a single punch. The head flew away, blood spilling all around. The monster said that it really was no different at all. After thrashing that monster, he moved forward. While moving, he observed something shining. He picked it up. It was a sword and was beautifully carved. He pushed that sword, blood splashed, and he took out a stone covered in blood. It was a low-grade magic stone. They were so insignificant in the past that he would not even glance at them. He bent down to put the stone in his bag, and then he heard the sound of approaching footsteps. They were just about to attack him when he got stabilized and responded to them in the best way. All the monsters were gone. Meanwhile, a group of 4 soldiers was on the way. The lady soldier remembered that annoying man from earlier. She asked what if he really dies. A man asked if she was worried about him. Another asked if that man was an intruder. Agents from the control center should be here by now. Men were rushing forward. It seemed that most probably these were the agents. This place, Namsan Gate, was a C rank location, so elite agents of B rank or higher would deploy. He said that as long as he did not recklessly rush at the monster, there was no chance of him dying. The muscular man said that Hung Nim was right. The monster thought that the brat was probably trembling and just waiting for the agents to rescue him right now. He punched the monster's face to knock him down and later jumped to attack with his legs on its head. The monster died on the spot. He collected 3 more magic stones. While moving forward, he was thinking what a disappointing harvest. So far, he had gathered 12 low-grade stones and 16 mid-grade ones. An agent rushed and approached from behind him. He informed his colleagues over Bluetooth that he was over there. The young boy heard this and turned around. All of them reached the spot. One of them introduced that they had come from the gate control center and asked him to please show his hero registration card. If he was an unregistered hero, he must go to the control center with them. The young boy asked if it was the gate control center. They requested that he please cooperate and follow their instructions. The young boy thought, what is this again, what a hassle. One of the agents ordered to take out the handcuffs. Another one requested him to please cooperate. He threatened that if he refused to follow their instructions, physical force might be used. One of them held his arm tightly and said that if he resisted, any physical injuries resulting would be entirely his responsibility. It was best to go to the control center and resolve this smoothly. He angrily held the agent's hand back and asked them to stop bothering him and go back. All of them took out their swords and sticks. This was a grade 4 magic staff that might work on mere orcs, but the young boy turned back the agent's hand. He said that this was the final warning and to leave now if they did not want to get hurt more. The young boy was being struck with metal rods. He remained steadfast in front of those agents. One of them turned around his neck and tried to grab him. The young boy lost his temper and reacted, kicking him so hard that blood oozed from the agent's mouth. Another one was full of anger, gazing at him with ferocious eyes while the boy stood calm and still. The agent was looking at him, and all of a sudden, his sight became blurry and started to disappear. He panicked and sweat rolled down his cheek. He wondered where the boy had gone. The boy moved fast and struck his chest, still standing in place. The agent was astonished to see him there and asked what was going on. The boy thought about whether there were no problems with the registered heroes. He was told that no, as long as no illegal acts were committed inside the gate, there was no need for agents to be dispatched. He then asked about the rift, passage through another world where strange monsters appeared from all over the world. The scarlet stones were there. These byproducts, obtained from hunting monsters, were used as new energy resources. For that reason, the gate was where the country completely controlled the passage and confined the monsters. The unknown space that hadn't been enclosed was known as the rift. The young boy asked if, no matter which gate he passed, these guys would come looking for him, accusing him of trespassing or whatever. The agent confirmed that was right. He explained that if an unregistered hero entered the gate without permission, the control center was automatically notified, and agents waiting nearby were dispatched immediately. The agent shrieked that the rift was not easily accessible like the gates, and even the Hero Association would not let him go unpunished. The young boy carelessly replied that whatever. He grabbed the agent's face, and the agent thought that he had lost his mind, this punk. The agent regretted not notifying the headquarters in the beginning. The boy held the agent's face, pushed him, and threw him back like a bag. The boy said that it was not a big deal. The agent got injured and called the boy a bad name. He said that the next time he caught him, he was dead. The boy moved forward into the jungle. That voice ripped through his ears like a scream. He lost consciousness and felt as though he were being sucked into something. Death. That was what he considered death. He opened his eyes while being upside down. He asked who the man was. The reply came that his name was Seo Dojin. Seo replied that he was dying. He saw a man up above. Seo said that if he listened to his one request, he would disappear quietly. Seo looked quite disappointed. The man above said that he had no regrets about his life. After fighting to the death for 10 years, his trusted comrade betrayed him, his country was destroyed, his friends died and his family too. They had asked him to live to the fullest, but it felt like nothing now. He knew that too. Even though he lived like that, he did not want his grandma or Yunyoung to live that way. So, he asked again what exactly was it that Seo wanted. Seo asked what it meant to want. Seoul Gasan Digital Complex, Gyeongcheon District. It was known as Hero Complex now. Gate byproduct trade had increased more than that of its companies. He was moving in the market when he asked himself whether he should go in here. A man using a smartphone and having a cobra tattoo on his arm welcomed him. Seo said that he wanted to sell some magic stones. The man replied that he came to the right place. They offered the highest prices in Seoul. No, the whole of Korea. Seo placed the stones on the table. The man at the reception panicked and thought that at least he could have wiped blood before bringing them. He said that Seo had a lot of magic stones and requested that he wait while they were sorted. He asked Seo if he would like some coffee until then. Seo sat on the chair and replied that anything would do. While he was taking a sip of coffee, the man wiped all the stones with a clean cloth. After that, he told Seo that there were 12 low-grade magic stones and 16 medium-grade magic stones. There were also 5 upper and lower-grade magic stones. He reminded Seo that the commission was 40% of the purchase price. After calculating, he happily told Seo that the total amount he would receive was 5.46 million won. Seo asked him to hold on. He said that he did all the hunting and the man was just buying them, so what the hell was the 40% commission for? The receptionist asked if he didn't know. Originally, the commission was 45%. Only they offered a 40% commission. If he didn't want to sell, he could take them back. No one would offer more money than them. Seo agreed and started putting the stones back in his bag. While Seo was putting them back, the receptionist held his hand and asked him to pay for the appraisal. He also had to pay for the coffee. It was 30,000 won for the appraisal and 10,000 for the coffee. Since he also had to wipe the blood, which ruined their expensive towel, He now had to pay a total of 350,000 won, including the cost of the towel. Seo took his hand off and said he didn't have any money. The man muttered that he should suit himself. He asked if Seo wasn't going to sell it to them. They had a few C-class heroes watching over them. He was destroyed, muscular with tall height, appeared and asked what had happened, why he called, and whether someone was causing trouble again. They all looked at Seo with anger. The man at the reception had a face full of sweat. He was looking at them in confusion. A muscular senior man tried to harass Seo while the receptionist, scared, hid behind that senior. Seo knocked the senior down with a single punch. All of them were now lying in different postures, unconscious. One of them fell on the table and broke it. While Seo was about to leave, he came to the counter and said that the commission was 1%. The receptionist was so scared that he was unable to understand what Seo was saying, as was evident from his facial expressions. Seo told him to let them make cool deals from now on, and to come again next time. A wad of cash was lying on the table. The grandmother and little girl were amazed. The old lady asked what kind of money it was. She lifted the wad in her hand. Seo replied while sitting on the floor that it was not like she was thinking. He once lent money to a friend who was starting a business, and that business ended up doing really well. She suspiciously asked if he had a friend like that. Seo replied that she knew him, someone he used to hang out with back then, where he grew up. She said of course she knew. The little girl, overjoyed, asked if they were rich now. He patted her head and replied that yes, from now on. She jumped and flew in excitement, saying they were rich, they had become rich. He thought about Grandma and Yoon-young, asking for them to live in a house safer than anywhere else. And then he disappeared before he could even answer. Looking at the mirror, he said that when he woke up he had become Seo Dojin. The curtains were drawn aside from the window, with sunshine entering the room. The safest house in Korea currently costs 110 billion won. He had no obligation to keep a one-sided promise, but if only he could get his strength back, money would mean nothing. Rifts, gates, monsters. Everything here was weaker than the world he once saw fall. A hand rose with fire in the background. To him, who was the sword god, this place was child's play. He had not even recovered 1/10 of his power yet. While they were all sitting on the clean floor, someone said that Seo Dojin was in there, right? He would go check. He was asked to stay inside. When he opened the door he found two men standing outside. A man with blonde hair said that Seo Dojin should repay his debts on time, right? Another man with golden hair asked if he knew how much he owed. Hoping 48 million won. Seo closed his eyes and thought that they must be loan sharks the real Seo Dojin had borrowed from before he died. 5 million won borrowed for grandma's hospital bills had turned into 10 times that in no time. The blonde-haired man asked if he had made money from the gate and told him to hand it over. The other one poked Seo's tummy and said it was all in the contract, so he should not act like it was unfair. Seo chuckled, then lost his temper and hit him so hard that he fell back. Seo said he had already repaid over 9 million won. Shouldn't he be the one receiving money? The golden-haired man, now scared, asked if he was really Seo Dojin. Seo told him to inform his boss that he would be paying him a visit soon. Seo clenched his fist in anger. People were strolling in the corridor, and some of them were leaning against the glass railing. It was a shopping mall, where a toy shop had a specific teddy bear section. His little sister was looking at those teddy bears and asked if she could really buy one. Could she get a new doll? Seo replied that sure, they had already bought clothes, so now she could get whatever she wanted. She became happy. While sharing Seo Dojin's memories, his once dry emotions began to change. For now, it was only sympathy. She sat down to look at the teddy bears placed on the racks. But Seo Dojin had been kind even to Yoon-young, his half-sister. At the very least, he would protect that sentiment. In-young asked if she could get this one. She was holding a white, colored simple small teddy bear in her hands. Seo handed her a large golden, colored teddy bear instead. Seo said he had told her to pick whatever she wanted. She became extremely happy. They were having a lavish lunch with a variety of dishes. During this someone said, "Wait, Seo Dojin." Right, Seo Dojin. Seo was completely confused. There was a chubby lady with 2 bald bodyguards. She inquired what was with his appearance. Dressed like that, he really looked like a nobody. And who was that next to him? He thought that did he mess up and get someone pregnant like his mom did? In-young asked who the hell this lady was. The lady looked at Un-young with a smiling face while the little girl was still busy enjoying her meal. She asked her what her name was. The little girl replied that her name was Lee Yoon-young. The lady repeated the name, Lee Yoon-young, and asked if she was from the Lee family. She commented on how she was dressed, so messy, just like her mother. The lady affirmed it and turned to Seo, saying he had gone mute. No answer. She looked back at Yoon-young and said, "Hey kid, does she know what the word harlot means?" She described her as an ugly woman, like an orc. She was shocked after seeing Seo's face. He was filled with anger, and his eyes had turned from black to yellow. Seo Dojun was born as an illegitimate child and had lived in poverty. At the age of 7 his mother died, and he barely made it to his father's house. He lived for over 10 years under discrimination and contempt. After his father's legitimate wife gave birth to a son, he was completely neglected. Then, he was kicked out again and lived with his half-siblings at his grandmother's house. Seo Dojun. What kind of mindset does someone need to endure all that? He said that things would be different from now on. Seo replied that they had lived together for 12 years, but it was still disgusting. She said not only were his appearance and personality a mess, but he was also dumb and couldn't study. She said he only felt severe inferiority towards women. Listening to this, agents nearby were surprised and confused. She asking who was prettier or kinder than him. He who only cared about his brother's finances was no better than this kid. Seo, filled with anger, shouted back, not even one bit. He spoke so loudly that everyone around turned their attention to him. She asked angrily, "What, Dojin? It's been a while." Another lady walking past caught her eye. She rushed over to hug her, calling her mom. Even the bodyguards were astonished. She broke down and wept loudly, saying, "Mom, did she know what that kid had just said to her?" Well, what that kid had said to her. The woman told her to stop. She told her to stay still and asked what kind of uncultured behavior that was. Then she turned to Dojin with a light mood and asked how he had been all this time. She said that even if he was busy, she wished he would come home once in a while. Seo thought to himself that she was a hypocrite, the person who had hurt him the most in the last 12 years. She said his dad worried about him so much. Seo thought that was disgusting. He replied that they were not exchanging pleasantries, were they? He told her to get lost. The woman looked at him in disappointment and turned away in anger. She thought to herself, was this really Seo Dojin, the guy who used to lower his head even when slapped without reason? The lady followed her, saying, "Mom, let them go together." They looked at them suspiciously. Seo said to let them go. Yoonyoung agreed. He thought that the Seo Dojin who could not even speak and just endured was no more. It would be better for his well-being if he realized that as soon as possible. A car was moving down the road. The younger woman was crying, while the one she had called mom was busy applying makeup. She asked her mom why she had just left. She should have trampled that guy. She shrieked, asking if she knew what that guy had said to her, that foolish man. The mother replied, calling for the manager. She said she was doubtful. Why was Dojin still alive? The bodyguard said that according to the report, Kang Cheolwoo had said he left Dojin at the gate. The young woman shrieked again, asking why. Why was the guy who should have been dead still alive? She said she was sorry and would check again. That lady asked if he should have died. Mom, what did she mean? She asked again. Mom, what was she saying? What the hell was she doing? Was she trying to kill Dojin? She asked angrily if she still liked Dojin. The mother replied that no, that was not it. The daughter asked what would happen if grandpa or dad found out about this. The mother placed her hand over the lady's to silence her. She said it was something for her mom to handle on her own. She ordered her to mind her own business. She thought to herself, how dare he talk back to her? That bad boy. She would get rid of him no matter what. 10 years ago, after the rift appeared, monsters emerged from it and began killing people. There was a massacre. The world fell into extreme chaos. Buildings were shattered and fires broke out. The chaos subsided instantly with the emergence of the hero, along with the discovery of mana stones extracted from monsters. A yellow car was speeding through the sunny weather. Seo was looking out of the car window. With mana stones replacing traditional energy sources, countries around the world devoted all their efforts to sealing the rifts. Now, all industrial structures revolved around gates and heroes. Suddenly, the driver stopped the car. Seo had reached his destination, Yangdongpo HCS capital. If he wanted to earn money now, he had no choice but to become a hero. Seo stepped toward the building. 3 men in a disheveled state were there. One of them, sitting on a chair and puffing a cigarette, asked who he was. He extinguished the cigarette by grinding the burning end on the table. He asked Seo if he dared to come here shamelessly after beating up his kids. Seo responded that no matter how hard he thought about it, he was the one who had suffered the loss here. The man questioned him, asking what he meant by saying he was at a loss. Seo claimed he needed compensation for the mental, physical, and material damages he had suffered because of him all this time. The man glared at Seo furiously. His once gentle personality had changed. Judging from the fact that he had completely crushed his employees, it seemed he was undergoing an awakening at the gate. Another man said it looked like Seo had found something that gave him confidence. He asked if he should tell him what happens to people who act up just because they've awakened. He stood up in anger and said those bastards who are proud of their awakening are still D-class scum in the end. He claimed he had many men under him who could silence a small D-class like Seo. All his men gathered around Seo. One man stood up and picked up his coat to wear it. As he was about to leave, Seo stood up and told him to sit down. He said he wasn't done talking yet. The man lost his temper. He asked how a little kid like him dared to talk down to him. Seo struck his face and knocked him down. He asked if he only ran a private money lending business. Then he attacked another man and said he knew he was also making counterfeit IDs. Seo said he needed a hero ID to make money. He punched the man's face, causing blood to ooze out. He knocked all of them down and told them to make a perfect, trouble-free ID for him. They had until tomorrow. Everyone stood in astonishment. They wondered what kind of power that was. He couldn't be D-class. Was he C-class? No, maybe B-class. Seo asked if the man wasn't going to answer him. He placed his hand on the man's shoulder and asked if Hong Heeju had ordered him to kill Seo. He shook the man's body and demanded an answer. The man replied, saying Hong Heeju wanted to push Seo so deep into debt that he would end up committing suicide. Another man shrieked, saying that was what she had told them. He begged Seo to let him go. Seo asked if suicide was the plan, and if that was the reason they locked him in the gate. The man replied that he knew nothing about locking him in the gate. He swore on it. He pleaded, saying there was no way he would send him to the gate because if he died in there, he wouldn't get his money. He kept swearing he was telling the truth. Seo grew confused. He said it must have been Kang Cheol-woo, that fool, who brought him to the gate. Seo told him to bring him information about that guy by tomorrow too. The man agreed. As Seo was leaving the room, all the injured men stood up. Seo looked up at the sky, thinking that he wanted his grandma and Eunyoung to live in a safer house than anywhere else. Now that he was on this path, he would put everything right. Seo was holding a scanning card with his picture on it. He swiped the card at the scanning machine, and a computerized voice informed him that his hero registration card had been confirmed. The metal gate opened with a mechanical hum. However, the voice added that his rank was below the recommended level and warned him to proceed carefully, as it could be dangerous. Looking at his card, Seo muttered in frustration that the damned president should have upgraded it to an A rank. As he passed through different gates, he kept receiving alerts that his rank was insufficient for the area he was entering. He was walking through the Night Island Gate, a B-rank gate with a D-rank scale and tunnel terrain. The recommended rank for this gate was A, and entrance was limited to 2 people. Despite its B-rank classification, the D-rank scale made solo play difficult. Yet due to its tunnel-like structure, only solo play was possible, making it nearly impossible to clear unless the entrant was close to A-rank strength. Seo understood that if luck wasn't on his side, he would have to face hundreds of monsters alone in a dark, narrow tunnel. Soon a horrifying monster with a long neck and strong claws appeared in front of him. Seo grabbed its claw and remarked that he loved it. As the monster retaliated by attempting to attack with a pointed fang, Seo cleverly countered it, causing greenish saliva to ooze from the monster's mouth in response to the pain. He identified it as a black killing viper. Its venom could cause paralysis with just a slight touch. Seo launched a ruthless attack and sliced the creature into 2. He noted that for 300,000 won, the pair of gloves he was using wasn't too bad. But now, 4 more monsters appeared. He struck them with his magical gloves, causing green blood to splatter everywhere. After defeating them, he tore into one of the monster's bodies using the pointed end of his glove, searching for a magic stone. To his disappointment, there was none. Surprised, he recalled that if the rules were the same as in the previous world, the probability of a magic stone being inside a black killing viper was about 3%. He concluded that he would have to hunt several hundred to find one. As he moved forward, he came across the skeletons of fallen warriors, still in costume and clutching swords. Looking at one of them, he asked aloud if it was the boss. He figured he was getting lost anyway, so encountering the boss now might be for the better. Seo clenched his fist, ready to punch the monster, stating that he should finish this quickly and go back. But when his first strike had no effect, he struck again with full force, determined to kill it. Now gathering magical power, he noticed that this viper was different. He realized it was on a completely different level from the others he had faced. The creature's shell was so tough that even his fists couldn't break through. Seo wondered what he should do. He thought that if he had only regained his former strength, the monster would already be dead. His eyes then landed on a sword embedded upright in the ground near one of the skeletons. Though it was worn out, he figured he had no other choice. He reminded himself that no matter how old a sword might be, its power depended on who wielded it. He picked it up, looked at it, and approached the monster, asking it to lend him its strength for a moment. Seo leapt backward and declared that the viper should be honored, for he was about to be personally destroyed. He employed various tactics and attacks in an effort to defeat the beast. At last the sword, pulled from beside the skeleton, shattered into pieces, and the black viper fell to the ground. Seo said that had he not defeated it, the situation would have been disastrous. He looked at the unconscious monster and thought that the blade had been a bit short for a great sword. Still, with some refinement, it might become useful. He added that this place was still better than Namsan, even though he had spent so much time in a B-rank gate. Finally, Seo exited the gate. He acknowledged that restoring his strength was now his top priority. He felt relieved that none of his old comrades had seen him in his current state. There was a super sale offer on magic stones. A robust man had placed ruby red, glittering stones on the table. The man at the counter appreciated the collection, saying it looked like he had gathered some high-quality magic stones, as always, and reminded him that their commission was 40%. The muscular man looked at him coldly and asked whether that wasn't a bit too steep. Since he was a regular, couldn't they cut him a deal? The man at the counter, while counting a wad of cash, replied with a chuckle that the 40% was already the lowest commission available. He pointed out that the gate center alone charged a flat 5% and didn't even keep transaction records, so they didn't pay taxes. After finishing the count, he handed over the cash and said that, if one thought about it, this was a clean, hassle-free deal at a great rate. The muscular man agreed and began counting the money himself. He then asked the man at the counter what had happened to his face, noticing the bruises, a contusion under his right eye, and plasters on his nose, cheek and neck. The man at the counter sighed, and replied that someone had come out of nowhere, wrecked their guards, and done that to him. He explained that he had gotten too comfortable just because he had a C-rank guard. The muscular man responded that he had already told him rank didn't mean much. It was about actual skill. He said ranks were for bureaucrats' convenience and that real ability was something else entirely. He added that if someone thought all people with the same rank had the same skill, they were completely wrong. There was, he said, a big difference between a guard who had just earned a license and watched a shop and a hero who risked their life hunting monsters. The man at the counter, annoyed, asked him to leave if he was done trading instead of continuing to yap. But the muscular man replied that they had known each other a long time, so if the other ever needed help, he should give him a call. As the man turned to leave the shop, Seo arrived. The man at the counter was stunned to see him. In fear, he shrieked, pointing a finger at Seo and saying that it was him. He was the one who had done this to him. The muscular man looked at Seo curiously and asked whether it was really this guy who had caused the scene. He observed that Seo looked tall and kind of clean-cut, and asked whether he was the one who had made a mess there. He questioned Seo's behavior, asking if he truly called himself a hero while going around hitting civilians. He reminded him that heroes weren't supposed to lay hands on ordinary people. The man at the counter thought to himself that the muscular guy was a 7-year veteran hero with a lot of connections. If Seo messed with him, it could be trouble. But Seo simply told him to buzz off and asked if he was looking for revenge or something. The muscular man lost his temper and started speaking in a disgusted tone, calling Seo a little. But then he suddenly stopped, thinking to himself that the #1 cause of hero deaths wasn't monsters, it was accidental fights with other heroes. He was stunned to realize that his veteran instincts had kicked in. Confused, he turned around and said they would meet again, but for now, he had to run. The man at the counter stood there, scared and unsure of what had just happened. Seo turned to him and asked if he had a problem with him. Without waiting for a reply, he handed over the ruby-red magic stones and asked the man to ring them up. The man was awestruck by the sight of the stones and thought to himself they were high-grade magic stones. He wondered who Seo really was. After making a rough estimate, he calculated the total value and told Seo it would be 150 million won. Seo, sounding disappointed, questioned whether an entire hunting would only earn him 150 million. He asked the man to bring him the money. The man at the counter reminded him that they still had to deduct their commission. Seo's expression changed. He wondered if he had said the wrong thing. Then he corrected himself and said the commission was 1%. That would make the total 1.485 billion won. He told the man to bring it. The man lost his temper and shouted at Seo, calling him a son of a bitch. He insisted that the commission was 40% and asked if Seo was deaf. He explained that for transactions over 1 billion won, they needed upper management's approval. Seo told him to go get the approval. Now, the man picked up the phone receiver and called his boss. He explained the situation over the phone. Seo, standing nearby, told him he had better be explaining it properly and to make sure they paid up. The boss on the line replied that he understood but politely asked if Seo could give the phone back to the staff. Seo, irritated, handed the phone back and said that the so-called upper management had just given the go-ahead. He demanded the money. The man reluctantly handed over 3 bags piled with wads of cash. As Seo turned to leave, he told him to keep things cool next time too. The man at the counter muttered under his breath, wondering when forcing people started counting as a cool deal. 10 minutes later, the boss arrived in person. He angrily asked why his staff hadn't answered his phone and demanded to know what the earlier call was about. The man at the counter replied that he was quitting. He couldn't do it anymore. He looked at the floor anxiously and spotted a saw stuck in the ground. The boss immediately picked up his phone and made a call. He said, "Jian, it's him. I need you to come here." Joanne was walking down the street and everyone around her seemed amazed at her presence. She had long, flowing purple hair and glasses on her eyes. People whispered among themselves, asking if that was really Joanne. They confirmed. It was indeed Hyeon Joanne. She approached the magic stone shop, looking strikingly handsome. The man at the counter stood frozen in amazement. Joanne raised her glasses slightly and confirmed that yes, she was Hyeon Joanne, South Korea's 4th S-rank hero. The man thought to himself that while he had heard rumors she was the boss's niece, he still didn't understand why she was here. His boss had said he had a head itch because some hero had been forcing people to buy magic stones. Joanne asked him to explain the situation in detail. It was morning. Seo's younger sister was playing happily with a big teddy bear while he sat silently on the couch. The child played with both a bunny and the bear, unaware of her brother's tense mood. Seo sat with his eyes closed, visibly angry and lost in thought. Despite hunting all day, he had barely earned 100 million won. At this rate, he realized he wouldn't make it in time. He needed to be able to clear S-rank gates on his own as soon as possible. That meant the most important thing now was to regain the strength he once had. But unlike the world he had lived in before, the mana in the air here was thin. Even if he gathered mana every single day without rest, it would still take him 3 years, perhaps even longer, to recover. It would help to have at least some decent equipment, but even trash-tier gear in this world cost hundreds of millions. Suddenly Seo opened his eyes wide. Sensing something off, his little sister looked up at him concerned. Seo stood abruptly and shouted that they had to go inside. He scooped up Yoonyoung and rushed toward the house. Their grandmother, startled, asked what was going on and addressed him as Dojin. She nervously added, "Oh no." Seo then muttered in shock, questioning whether it was an earthquake. But no, it wasn't. Seo realized it wasn't an earthquake. It was a rift. Their grandmother instinctively wrapped her arms protectively around Yoonyoung as Seo stormed outside with urgency. She asked him again what was happening. Seo replied that it was dangerous and warned her not to leave the room. Meanwhile, at the Seoul Hero Association headquarters, a new rift had been detected in the Mapo district. The team leader, along with the staff, stared at the map in disbelief. He noted that a new rift had appeared after 63 days and seemed slightly perplexed by the timing. He remarked that the White Lion Guild was the closest to Mapo and ordered immediate contact with them. He also directed that any nearby heroes should be dispatched right away. He stood and asked exactly where the rift had appeared. The reply came it had emerged in the yard of a residential home. Confused, he repeated the words, "residential home." That was a major problem. If a civilian, rather than a registered hero, entered a newly formed rift, no one else could go inside until that person came back out. Then a troubling thought crossed his mind. And what if that person died inside? A monster wave would burst out from the rift zone for 10 full days, unleashing numerous monsters that would rampage through the local area. If that happened, the entire Seoul region could be devastated. The team leader quickly asked if they had identified the person who had entered the rift. The staff responded that his name was Seo Dojin. He lived at the house where the rift had opened. His grandmother claimed he had entered the rift to save his younger sister. The leader asked whether Seo was a registered hero. They replied that he wasn't. The leader then inquired about the odds of a monster wave occurring when a civilian entered a new rift. The response was grave, 99.9%. Everyone in the room was clearly anxious. A woman among them asked if he had awakened. Someone explained that although Seo hadn't yet registered with the Hero Association, it was confirmed that he had awakened during the last gate incident. She snapped in anger, demanding to know what Kang Cheolwoo had been doing. She yelled that he should have killed that bastard himself. Why had he allowed things to become so complicated? And then he even took money for it. She turned to manager Lee and told him to make something very clear to Kang Cheolwoo. If Cheolwoo didn't kill that punk Dojin, he would owe her 10 times what he was paid. But Lee calmly replied that there might be no need to contact Kang Cheolwoo anymore. She asked what he meant. Lee told her a new rift had appeared in Mapo, at Seo Dojin's house, and they had already confirmed he had entered it. The media would be reporting the incident soon. She coldly remarked that in that case, it seemed they would never have to see that lowly brat again. Lee agreed. She instructed him to keep a close watch until they were absolutely sure of the outcome. Inside the rift, Seo stood barefoot on jungle soil. Looking around, he found it hard to believe his eyes. It was the forest of Petishua, a place he used to visit frequently when he was young. From the trees and grass growing there, to the scent in the wind and the dense manna in the air, everything was just as he remembered. Even the shapes of the clouds above were exactly the same. He moved forward confidently, knowing the path. As expected, he found it the world tree. With its merged branches glowing faintly, it stood tall, an ancient spirit tree that contained the purest flow of mana. He recalled that the downfall of the previous world had begun when this very tree was burned, disrupting the global mana flow. But now, the world tree still stood. He didn't know how or why, but he thought to himself that maybe, just maybe, he could reclaim the mana of that lost time. After entering the rift, Seo found himself deep inside a jungle. He sat beneath a large tree whose branches held glittering orbs like hanging globes. Nestled within an oval opening at the base of the tree, he settled into meditation. Seo remained there for 3 days without moving. He had forgotten to eat or drink, completely immersed in focusing on his breathing. For 10 days straight, he remained in that meditative state, his mind unwavering. Eventually he opened his eyes. He had sensed something. He became aware of the presence of monsters hiding behind nearby trees, quietly observing him from a distance. He identified them immediately. It was Volcana, the same species that had once burned the world trees in the past. As they advanced toward him, Seo thought to himself that it would have been nice to have a sword imbued with water element properties. But in the next moment, he decided it didn't matter. He would simply smash everything that came his way. He summoned his magical power, preparing to destroy them. The mana he released surged around him, both defending and attacking at once. He unleashed his gathered energy in the form of QI and detonated it upon impact. Seo reflected that it had been a long time since he had poured out this much mana at once. After executing the spell, he mentally confirmed that the world tree was safe for now. With that done, it was time to check his own mana with his own eyes. The monsters were still advancing, climbing and leaping across the trees above. Seo leapt into action, pushing 2 of them down with his hands and swiftly killing them. Blood splattered as he extracted ruby-red magical stones from their bodies. Seo muttered to himself that if he could take care of these creatures, he might be able to obtain the Eternal Ember as well. He vaguely recalled that, With a fairly high probability these monsters would drop it, he wondered how many would actually produce the ember. He fought them with skill and precision, using everything he had. Then at last, he found it, a gold coin. Picking it up, he confirmed that it was the eternal ember. He couldn't believe he had gotten it again. It would be ideal to continue drawing mana from the world tree, but with his current body, absorbing more mana directly from it was impossible. The only method available to him now was to absorb the ember and convert his mana into fire mana. He thought back to how, in the past, he had never needed to absorb the ember manually. But now, it took him 10 full minutes to absorb just one. This time, there were about 7 gold coins. He resolved to absorb as many as he could. Outside the rift, a crowd had gathered. Police were maintaining a perimeter while cameramen filmed the scene. Observing the situation, the team leader cursed under his breath, demanding to know what the hell was going on. He identified the location as Bangshan Gu and blamed the chaos on one reckless man. Another man remarked that the person in question had entered trying to save his sister. That man was Kim Hyunwoo, who dismissed the claim. He said it was just something the guy said to sound noble. Kim claimed he had heard rumors that awakening was easier inside rift zones, and so, without thinking of the consequences or others, Seo had just gone in. If Seo was going to die, Kim said he should have done it alone. Now he had thrown everything into disarray. Kim asked what Gilma Hyung had to say about the situation. Bang replied that according to protocol, Gilma had said to wait for the wave. Kim, confused, asked why. Bang explained that apparently rifts had appeared simultaneously in the US, China, the UK, Turkey, and Switzerland. Gilma Hyung was likely preoccupied with managing the global chaos. This, after all, was the first time such an event had ever happened. Purple-colored monsters had appeared throughout the cities, forming lines, but those countries had managed to suppress them quickly. Yet they had also sustained severe damage in the process. Kim grew increasingly anxious, blaming everything on that useless goofball. He added that if the guy who went in first ever came out, he would personally beat him to a pulp. It had now been 28 days since the new rift appeared. The Hero Association had declared the threat level of the monster wave as level 1. By their policy, if the person who first entered the rift, a civilian, did not return within 2 days, a wave would be inevitable. Watching the news, a CEO pointed at the screen and asked if the person shown was Seo Dojin. His bodyguard confirmed it, saying he had already had his subordinates verify the identity. It was definitely Seo Dojin. That bodyguard was Kim Un-gu, the right-hand man of CEO Wang Changseob. The CEO asked how likely it was that Seo would return alive. Kim replied bluntly that if Seo was just an ordinary person, there was no need to discuss probabilities. It would be less than 1%, maybe not even 0.1%. The CEO smiled and mocked the idea that Seo was ordinary. 3 injured men stood nearby. Kim scoffed, blaming the Hero Association for being clueless and ill-informed. The CEO asked what they would do if Seo turned out to be an awakened one. Kim answered that if he was awakened, it would depend on his level. Honestly, he admitted, it was hard to make a solid judgment. The CEO agreed, pointing out that being good at fighting and surviving inside a rift were 2 completely different things. Kim repeated his words with a bit of confusion, trying to confirm the boss's intent. He then asked what the CEO planned to do next. The CEO simply said to keep Seo's little sister and grandmother safe for now. Then, with a disgusting grin, he added that if Seo died inside the rift, they would harvest and sell his family's organs. But if he survived, they would trap his family in debt under the guise of having cared for them. Meanwhile, morning had arrived inside the rift. Seo opened his eyes and asked aloud how much time had passed. His body brimmed with magical energy from the unquenchable embers. He had absorbed hundreds of them. Now he could wield fire element mana at will. His resistance to fire had increased dramatically. In fact, when it came to fire attributes alone, his current state surpassed even the time when he was known as the Sword God. He gently touched the world tree and thanked it, just as he had in the past, and once again now. He gathered all the ruby red magic stones scattered around the forest floor, placing them in a bag. He muttered that he might never see the world tree again, but if they ever crossed paths and the tree was in danger, he would protect it no matter what. As day turned into night, Seo pressed forward. He sensed no presence within a 1-kilometer radius and wondered if everyone had already evacuated in preparation for the wave. Then he sensed a slightly stronger presence in a certain direction. Following it, he heard voices nearby. Seo crept silently behind a wall and peeked at 2 sharply dressed men who were engaged in a private conversation. Judging by their clothing, Seo recognized them. They were the same individuals from the last gate incident. He thought that if they caught sight of him, things could quickly become troublesome. To create a distraction, Seo gathered fire magic and launched it in another direction. The explosion startled both men, who immediately turned their attention to the noise. One of them shouted in alarm, asking what was going on. The other responded, saying it was fire. A building had been set ablaze. The 2 rushed toward the location. People nearby gathered and stared at the flames as they spread. One of the men yelled, demanding to know what was happening and why there was fire here. Meanwhile, Seo stood in the shadows, observing the blaze. He noted that the fire's behavior and targeting precision were impressive. Even he would have been impressed by such control. After all, he reminded himself, he had once been the continent's strongest fire mage. Then, one of the men paused and asked his companion to wait. As he stared at the rift, he said something was strange. The rift seemed to be soaring upward. The other man responded in disbelief, and then both watched as the rift twisted and began to scatter into pieces. Panic spread through the onlookers. One observer asked aloud what was going on, staring at the phenomenon. He shouted that the rift, it was disappearing. At that moment Seo was climbing a staircase, a bag full of stones slung over his shoulder. Breaking news appeared on national television. The newly emerged rift in Mappo disappeared early this morning. Exactly 29 days after Mr. Seo entered the rift area, the Hero Association, which had anticipated a monster wave, is surprised by the unexpected disappearance and is conducting a thorough investigation into the cause. Meanwhile, an unexplained fire also broke out near the rift at a local junkyard. Everyone was looking at the big news screen installed on the large building. People gossiped. That guy, Mr. Seo, probably died after going into the rift, right? Serves him right. It's common sense to stay away from rifts when they appear. Seo, wearing a hood and passing by, heard that. Still, a person died. Does he have to talk like that? Don't be naive. If the rift hadn't closed, Seoul would have turned into a war zone. He thought that if it had really disappeared, does that mean he would never see the world tree again? It's a shame, but maybe it's for the best. Seo looked up at the sky. He said that there is still something he needs to protect. He reached the market at Yeondongpo HCS capital. Men were enjoying smoking and gossiping. A man in a yellow shirt said, "That fool is dead, so the old lady and the kid are finished too." Another one responded, "Of course, boss isn't an ordinary person. He'll squeeze at least 10 times the value out of them. The old lady is whatever, but that little girl, she might turn out pretty decent when she grows up. The boss is probably already thinking of ways to use her." Seo, wearing a hood, appeared there and asked them, "Where is your boss?" A car stopped near the building. The boss stepped out, combing his hair. Followed by a bodyguard, he said, "That guy is dead, so I can finally sleep peacefully." The bodyguard asked, "Mr. Kim, what's on the schedule today?" He was reading a diary and replied, "Lunch with CEO Bark. No evening plans." The boss said, "Is that so? Then contact Madam Kang and let her know I'll come tonight. Tell her to have the new girls dolled up too." The bodyguard responded and agreed. The boss was climbing up the stairs. He got there and was amazed to see his bodyguard injured. The boss cuffed and Seo said, "Crawl over here like a dog." Seo added, "Didn't you hear me?" Seo sat on the chair with his legs on the table. The boss bowed down in front of him. Seo said, "Bark. A fool like you doesn't even deserve to be treated like a human. Bark like a dog." He woofed like a dog, following Seo's instructions. Seo ordered him to speak louder. Always acting submissive, like you'd give up your liver and gall up front, but ready to stab in the back the moment there's an opening, Seo said. Seo asked, "Wang Changxiab, do you think this is the first time I've dealt with rats like you? Begged, please spare me. I'll be loyal like a dog." Seo thrashed him and ordered, "Shut up." Seo called a man with glasses, abused him, and said, "From now on, you're the boss. Stop working like a dog under scum like this." He said, "Taking out his higher-ups isn't a big deal for guys like you, right? You have my permission to do it." The man, sweating, bent down in front of him and said, "Our boss has a lot of connections. If I suddenly became the boss, everyone would think something's off. Instead, please spare me. Just," Seo asked. Seo asked, "Why are you being so dense?" He continued, "He'd toss him in a barrel and dump him at sea or crush him at a junkyard. Isn't that your specialty? If you really don't want to do it, you can throw him into a gate as monster food." He pleaded, "Please, just my life. Just spare my life. I'll work like a dog for life. I swear. I beg you." Seo thought that cutting off Wang Changxiab here would clean things up nicely. Seo asked, "Have I gotten soft?" He said, "Alright, I've been wrong all this time." He extended his hand to support him. He said, "From now on I will serve you as." After this, Seo got furious. He gathered fire magic and said, "This is your last chance." This burnt Wang's hand. Seo said, "If even a scratch ends up on any of members, you're all dead. You'll have to guard them 24/7 for the rest of your life." Officially, Dojin was an existence that vanished along with the rift. The government and the Hero Association had declared him gone. He was, however, enjoying a lavish brunch at a restaurant with his sister. All kinds of media associations had already treated Dojin as if he were dead. Seo Dojin was scrolling through social media platforms and was dumbfounded to see the news of his own death. He was worried that even if he told them he was alive, it would only bring trouble. He chuckled, thinking that Wang Changxiab would help him find a new house soon so they could move leisurely. Yunyoung was busy enjoying junk food. After finishing, she said that it was nice they were moving now. Seo Dojin told her she could go to kindergarten like her friends and next year, she would go to school too. She became depressed after hearing that. He asked in confusion, "Why? Don't want to go to kindergarten?" She replied that kids teased her because she didn't have parents. He responded, "It's okay, you don't have to go." Dojin said that she didn't need to see those kinds of bastards. "Let them go to school next year." She asked, "Really? I don't have to go to kindergarten?" "Yeah, don't go." Seo Dojin then asked, "Should I send you to a prestigious private school so no one dares to look down on you?" He added, "Am I making a grandmother and a kid stay in a motel?" Seo asked, "Am I stupid?" The man replied, "This motel is managed by our company, so it's safe. Forget it. Yunyang and Grandma blushed after seeing Seo Dojin. Grandma touched Seo Dojin and burst into tears, saying, "You really came back alive, Dojin." Yunyang was weeping loudly. Dojin was quite worried. He replied, "Yes, I'm back." A girl asked him, "Are you also a hero?" He asked. "Why? Do you like heroes?" She said, "No, I wish you weren't one. Because heroes fight terrifying monsters and sometimes die. I just hope Appa will live with me and Grandma for a long, long time." Appa was depressed. He said that he also hopes to live with her and Grandma for a long time. In the harsh world of the past, he was the last human survivor, killing a large number of demons. He spent a long time fighting monsters, losing things. Before he knew it, something precious had appeared by his side, even though he had forgotten about them long ago. Grandma and Unyang embraced him. They all sat to enjoy lunch. Here in this place, he thought he could live happily, quietly protecting this happiness. A helicopter landed on a helipad near the Korea Hero Association. The leader was angry at his subordinate, saying, "You really couldn't find out anything. He is not Tao Wang, founder of the Korea Hero Association and director of the World Hero Federation." "No, we do not have any information about the current situation." "My apologies," she said. He replied, "How frustrating. That means the spontaneously disappeared rift can potentially appear again at any time." She responded, "Exactly. When variables arise, it becomes dangerous. If only a wave had occurred." "Be careful with your words," he interrupted. "Considering the safety of the people, this is a fortunate outcome." She apologized. "I'm sorry. My mouth slipped. Ta Wang is one of the top 100 most respected heroes in the world. It is said that he would be elected with the most votes in history if he ran for president, and he could easily overthrow domestic conglomerates if he wanted to. But his interests lie neither in the presidency nor in conglomerates, but in the safety of the people and preparation for rifts." Ta Wang furiously ordered, "Even if it takes time, investigate thoroughly again." She responded, "Understood. Also, the residents of the rift area have agreed to sell their houses." He said, "That's good. Offer more than the market price so they won't feel disappointed. It would be good if it brings some solace to those who lost their families." Ta Wang operated the computer to locate someone. He discovered that rifts this time had also occurred simultaneously in other countries. "Something feels off," he said. She asked, "Haven't the US and China already entered the control stages?" "The problem is the UK," he responded. "Reliable heroes have been dispatched to other rifts." There was a notification. He shrieked, "This cannot be. Is something wrong?" A man stopped near the metro station was busy using his mobile phone. People were moving above on the escalator. Seo was advancing, wearing a hoodie to keep his identity hidden. He entered a magical stone shop in the market. The boy at the reception welcomed him but shrieked in amazement after getting a glance at him. He shouted, "Manager! That guy, it's that person." Seo looked at the manager who was busy reading a newspaper. The manager asked, "It's him." He closed the newspaper in a disgusted manner. He stood up and inquired, "So, was it you? The one who was forcing people to buy low-grade crystals while I was gone?" Seo put his hand into his hoodie to take out something. He said, "Perfect timing. I've got a lot of magic crystals to sell today, and I was hoping someone high-ranking would be here to process them." The manager looked at him and thought, "Looks like he brought a bunch of low-quality ones again just like last time." The manager said, "I'm not doing business with you, leave." Seo asked, "You don't want to trade?" The manager responded, "You must not realize. At a 1% fee, I'm taking a major loss here. We won't be trading again, so just take them and leave." Seo replied, "You'll regret this." The manager said, "Can't get through to him. There's a reason even gate senders charge a 5% fee. This distribution system for magic crystals, well, not that I need to explain any of that." The manager got angry and said, "Grab your bag and get out. And don't ever come back." Seo turned his bag over to scatter the stones, just to show them. The manager and receptionist were both amazed after glancing at the stones. The manager thought, "Wait, is that a hero's magic crystal? That legendary arrow's magic crystal. It's worth whatever someone's willing to pay. Why is it here?" Seo said, "If you don't want it, that's fine. These are hero's magical crystals." A man was in a lab mixing some drugs. That was the infamous Mexican drug lord, Corzaman, dismantling a magic crystal to manufacture drugs. While mixing reagents, a test tube burst and chemicals spilled over him, awakening his power as a hero. Since then, this crystal has become a viral item for hero awakenings and mana enhancement. Now known as the hero's magic crystal, it is an incredibly rare energy source and an ultra-high-end product. Seo said, "Pack it back up. I'll leave." After seeing the stones, the manager's greed flared up. He said, "Customer, please, would you mind taking a seat and waiting just a moment?" The receptionist began wiping off the rare magical stones. They offered Seo a drink. The manager said, "Don't you think a 0.5% fee is a bit too much?" Seo replied, "Then don't take the deal." "No, I didn't mean it like that. I was just curious." The manager asked, "Why are you lowering it to 0.5%? "Because I'm annoyed," Seo answered. The manager bowed and said embarrassingly, "I sincerely apologize. I spoke without thinking." Seo said, "I'm tired of hearing apologies. Just tell me whether you're accepting the rate or not." The receptionist cursed his manager under his breath while he bowed down. He thought, what a rude prick. Magic crystals are extremely rare commodities, so some companies might buy them at market price with no fees at all. But not every time. The manager, flustered and embezzling, said, "This is too long." Seo rudely replied, "Then skip it if you don't want to," and stood up to leave. The manager shouted to attract him back, offering 9%. "We're already losing money at that rate," Seo replied, "Then stop losing money." He offered 8%. "Seriously? My boss would kill me if he found out." "Then don't do things that'll get you killed." 7%. "I can't go any lower than that." Seo rudely responded, "Nobody asked you to lower it." The manager again lowered it to 6%. "There's absolutely no profit in that," Seo said. "You think a merchant can survive without making a profit?" The receptionist watched them listening to the conversation while wiping the stones. The manager sat down at Seo's feet. Seo said, "I'll be generous and settle for 1%, out of respect for our past dealings." The manager grumbled, "Damn extortionist." Seo said, "Just so you know in advance." The manager told him he had about 7 more of those bags. He asked, "What are you standing around for? Get the contract ready. Now." A transaction alert appeared on the phone. "Stone Man has transferred 67,000. Seo said, "See, at this rate, a 110 billion house doesn't seem so far off." Seo thought, "The only problem is to get high-grade magic crystals. Normal gates aren't enough. If only I could travel freely through rift zones." There was a beep. Seo asked, "What now? A wave or something?" It was the UK. He thought, it must be something serious. Seo was looking at his phone in amazement. There was an administrative alert just now from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs indicating that a wave had occurred in the long southern region of the UK. Business travelers and tourists were advised to immediately adjust their plans. The embassy was currently confirming the safety of Korean nationals. Seo, while leaving the shop, said, "People without any real ability sure love to act tough." In the past, no matter the country or which association was involved, he would have gone to seal the rift. But not anymore. Someone was turning steak on the grill. His younger sister was amazed to see the grill, and Grandma was also surprised. They were all at a restaurant, and a waiter was serving them food. Grandma, looking at the menu, said, "Dojin, isn't 250,000 won for 100 grams kind of expensive?" Seo Dojin replied, "I made a lot of money this time. Don't worry, eat as much as you want." The waitress put a small piece of food into the little sister's mouth. Her joy knew no bounds after relishing it. The waitress said that they'd have 4 servings each of fresh ribs, prime ribeye, strip loin, and skirt meat. Grandma asked, "Isn't that a bit too much? How are we supposed to finish all that?" Seo Dojin replied, "Let's just eat our fill today." "Grandma, you too up." Grandma, in a disappointed tone, said, "Oh my goodness." Little sister offered a piece of food to Grandma and said, "This meat is so good you have to try it too, Grandma." She smiled and said, "Hor Yoon is such a sweet girl." Then a purple-haired woman appeared. Everyone around was dumbfounded to see her. She called out, "Mr. Seo Dojin, can we talk for a moment?" She asked, "So, you're a hero." Dojin replied, "Can't you see? I'm eating with my family. If you've got something to say, come back when the meal is over." She turned around and thought, "He knows, I'm high and joyond." She replied, "That's okay." But she was thinking, what kind of guy just brushes me off like that? There was a waiting area in the restaurant where she sat to wait. People were staring at her in surprise. Someone whispered, "That's Han Joyeon, right? The S-rank hero and world star, Han Joyeon." Another said, Right. She totally belongs in the top 10 most beautiful heroes in the world." Someone else whispered, "But who is she waiting for? Making Han Joyeon wait. Who the hell is it?" She thought Dojin 2 months ago was his first time entering a gate and he made it out alive. He's suspected to have awakened at that time, was believed to have died in the recent Mapper Rift incident, but he's alive and eating right here. Just a single look, a single word from him had me on edge. But a newly awakened guy reaching S rank in under 2 months. Even oil tycoon Kafmore, who aggressively bought up magic stones, took 5 years to reach S rank after awakening. There's no way that guy is S rank. He must have some kind of special ability, Yoon said. "Thanks a lot for the meal." At that moment, Hyun Joyeon stood up. Seo Dojin looked at her furiously. A man asked, "What is this?" Seo Dojin, "So I wasn't imagining things after all. How the hell did he crawl out of that gate?" "He was Kang Cheol-woo," he said. "I knew he was a roach, but I didn't think he was an actual cockroach." Hyun Joyeon thought, of all people, Kang Cheol-woo now. Hyun Joyeon asked, "You said you had business with me, right?" Kang asked. Hyun Joyeon, "What?" Seo Dojin replied, "I'll hear her out. Just take care of my family for a bit." She asked, "What exactly do you need?" Seo replied, "Just flag a taxi and get them home." She said, "I've got some debt to collect." They were at the Aura restaurant. Hyun Juyeon was holding the taxi door while Seo was trying to sit inside. The car was about to leave when Hyun Juyeon waved to Seo's younger sister, who was sitting with their grandmother, and said, "Bye, cute little lady." The taxi left for its destination while Seo stayed behind, busy thrashing someone at the restaurant. He slapped the man so hard that he nearly fell over. The man, furious, snapped back, "You bastard all." But before he could finish, the hotel manager appeared and scolded him sharply. "Excuse me, customers are here." You can't do that. Enraged, the man cursed at the manager and told her to leave. He even struck the restaurant staff. Siu stepped in and ordered him to get out. The man sneered back, "Do you wish to die? Bastard, I'm asking you, do you wish to die?" They clashed violently. Siu landed a blow that forced the man onto his knees, clutching his eyes. Siu, visibly shaken, called out, "Kang Xiaowu." With clenched fists, he demanded, "You're the one who dragged me to the gate and locked me there to die, aren't you? We have a lot to talk about. Am I right?" Kang sneered. "What could I possibly have to talk about with someone abandoned by his own father? Or about your stepmother who wants you dead?" Siu pulled out his phone and said coldly, "Say it again. I'll record your words." Kang smirked. "What should I say? That your mother was a whore? Just die here, Siu Dojin." He lunged at Siu with all his strength. Siu gathered his magical powers for defense. Kang's attack failed, his fist bouncing off. The two resumed their fight, wrecking the restaurant furniture and ignoring the chaos around them. The manager, terrified, stammered, "Whoop, what's the police number?" Just as she was about to dial, Hyenjuan arrived and told her to calm down, promising to handle everything. Overwhelmed, the manager burst into tears, thanking Miss Hyenjuan. Meanwhile, Siu continued fighting Kang. Hyenjuan thought to herself, "Kang Xiaowu is a B-rank hero. How can he be getting beaten so helplessly? Could Siu be higher than B rank? No, could he even surpass A rank? Even if he's an A rank, is it really possible for him to handle a B rank like this?" Worried, she called out, "Mr. Siu Dojin, stop. You might kill him." Then she demanded, "How much do you actually know about Xiaowu?" Siu replied calmly, "I know enough about him." "Why does it matter?" she shrieked. "Of course it matters. Kang Xiaowu's cousin is an S-rank hero." Kang Yongpyo. Siu responded, "I know. So what's the problem?" She was stunned. "He already knows, but he acts like he doesn't care about the consequences. This guy is reckless." Siu continued, "The only reason Kang Xiaowu gets away with everything is because he has Yongpyo's protection. That means what I'm doing now is dangerous. I understand the grudge between us, but don't think Kang Yongpyo will ever understand it." She asked, "So you're not afraid of Kang Yongpyo?" Siu answered, "More than fear, what bothers me is how much I already know about him." They glared at each other with anger, while the manager sat trembling in the back, thinking bitterly. She said she would take care of everything. Hyenjuan finally spoke. "I'm sorry for the sudden visit. My uncle asked me to come. You went to Gasign Stone Man and sold him the magic stones, right? Please sell them to me instead." Siu raised an eyebrow. "How many do you need?" "I'll buy everything you have, Mr. Siu Dojin," she replied firmly. Siu chuckled. "I have a lot, though." He answered calmly, "The assets of an S-rank hero are beyond imagination." Siu leaned back. "It's not like you can't sell them yourself. But I have a condition." "A condition?" she asked in surprise. He smirked. "Nothing much for you, it's nothing." Hyenjuan. Suddenly, a vase shattered into pieces. A woman holding a bottle shrieked as she witnessed the scene. "He's dead?" He entered a new rift and died. Her bodyguard bowed his head, embarrassed. "My apologies." Even the Hero Association believed he was dead. The woman glared at him. "Don't make excuses. How are you going to handle this?" He responded calmly. "Before that, there's something I need to report. Kang Xiaowu was defeated by Dojin." "What?" she exploded. "Kang Xiaowu? That crazy son of a bitch." She thought to herself, maybe Siu Dojin already knows something. If my father or husband finds out, it'll be troublesome, but I can cover it up. What matters is if this leaks to the media. The group's stock price could drop. We need to stop it. She ordered coldly, "Intercept the media. If this goes public, T Group and even W Group will cut advertising and refuse to deal with us. Shut the police up first. Do it now." The bodyguard reported, "The police and media have already been silenced." She exhaled in relief. "Good job, Director Lee." Director Lee hesitated, then said nervously, "But you know that isn't a fundamental solution, right?" He leaned closer and whispered in her ear, "Kang Xiaowu's cousin is Kang Yongpyo?" Her eyes widened. "Kang Yongpyo?" Director Lee nodded. Kang Xiaowu was notorious trash even among heroes. Many said Kang Yongpyo cared about him, but in reality, Xiaowu was just a pawn. He carried out all sorts of dirty work under Yongpyo's orders. Now if Xiaowu is manipulated by the police and media, it becomes a problem for Kang Yongpyo too. That's why he's already taking action. She clenched her fists. "Then we need to meet him first. Schedule it as soon as possible." "Yes," Director Lee agreed. She continued sharply, "And what about President Wang Changseop of HCS Capital? They say he betrayed us." "Yes," Director Lee admitted. "He's looking after Dojin's family." Her eyes burned with fury. "Contact Prosecutor Park immediately. Wang must pay the price for abandoning me and choosing him." There were a total of 37 rift zones in Korea. Among them, 5 zones were currently turning into gates. The rest could only be raided by Hero Association members who carefully coordinated their schedules. At the entrance, Hyunjuan's identity card was checked. After confirmation, the staff wished her a safe exploration. Siu Dojin, following a team inside, thought, "There's only one entrance?" And even though they know who Hyunjuan is, they still verify everything so thoroughly. They're keeping her in check. One of the team members muttered, "Unbelievable. To think she'd suggest hunting in the rift zone first. She's Zhang In-jo, the association's A-rank hero and the guild master of Cleum." Hyunjuan just smiled. "Well, I wanted to do something fun." Siu thought to himself, "This is my condition. If she lets me into the rift zone, I'll sell her all my magic stones at market price." "Why?" "Because I can make more money hunting here anyway." Hyun turned to him. You came all the way into this dangerous rift zone just for that reason. That's insane. Siu shrugged. Not that I care, he thought. Jiang Inju eyed Haiyan suspiciously. Be honest, who is that guy? He's just someone I know, Haiyan replied. Just someone you know? Inju pressed. Am I supposed to believe that? Is he your potential boyfriend? Haiyan shook her head quickly. No, nothing like that. I owe him a debt, and I want to repay it. Inju raised her brows. You? An S-rank hero owing someone else? That's hard to believe. Behind them, Seo silently followed as the team prepared to engage. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A monster approached. It was a cockatrice. Haiyan barked out orders. Jinju, Doyeon, you're on defense. Sungo aimed for its legs. Then she turned. Siu Dojin, you're first. The monster lunged down to attack. Siu leapt high into the air, aiming straight for the heinous monster. Inju frowned, wondering, when did it even enter the gate? The cockatrice growled and soared upward, trying to defend itself from Seo's strike, while the others watched from the ground. Haiyan barked out orders. Jinju, Doyeon, you're on defense. Sunko aimed for its legs. She gathered magical energy, preparing to strike as well. But before she could release it, Seo Dojin moved with the speed of lightning. Appearing in front of the monster, he summoned blazing fire energy into his hands. With a single blow, the monstrous bird was slammed to the ground. Everyone froze in disbelief. One man muttered, confused, it's down. Did it die in just one hit? Si shook his head. Not yet. He raised his leg and crushed the monster beneath his foot. But it has to die like this. The others were left speechless. Inju's voice trembled with disbelief. Who is this guy? Haiyan adjusted her glasses calmly. Just a strong human. Inju grabbed Han by the collar and shook her. That's what you call it. Do you have any idea how many heroes can take down a cockatrice in one blow? Haiyan smirked. If it's just knocking them down like that, even my sister could do it. Why? Are you serious? Inju snapped. You saw it with your own eyes, especially in an aerial battle. That thing couldn't even dodge his punch. It was knocked out in one hit? Haiyan dismissed her. Nonsense monster. But her suspicious gaze lingered on Seo. What is his identity? Haiyan then called out, Nuna, we need to change the plan. I'll head to the center for a bit. Inju blinked, confused by her sudden words. Meanwhile, Seo quietly excused himself. He drew a knife, cut into the monster's side, and pulled out its magic stone. I have no intention of sharing with anyone who contributes nothing, he said flatly. Haiyan replied, good. I wasn't planning to ask for any. Then she studied him carefully. Your abilities don't seem to belong here. Do you want to go deeper? Seo chuckled. That could be fun. He took out a dagger. I know this place well, Haiyan said. I'll take the lead. Stay close so you don't get lost. She dashed ahead, her feet barely touching the ground. Seo, confused at first, mimicked her movement, running so fast it looked like flying with every step. The team trailing behind gawked. If Haiyan Juian is a bullet, then that guy is light itself. One of them asked, Guild Master, aren't we following? Inju smirked bitterly. Follow him, you think we can? The man sighed. Of course not, I was just asking. Guess we're just sidekicks today. Let's hunt like usual. The cockatrice's corpse lay forgotten. Inju thought, people praise us like A-rank heroes, but in front of an S-rank, we're nothing but small fry. Julian and that man both. As they raced ahead, Haiyan glanced back. Should I slow down for him? But Seo suddenly overtook her. Can't we go faster? He teased, crossing her with ease. Haiyan's stomach tightened. What is going on? Did I just get caught? When it comes to speed, I'm in the top 2 in South Korea. Both gradually slowed their pace. Seo remarked bluntly, you're slower than I expected. Haiyan flushed with anger. Who said I couldn't catch up? They stopped at a vast mountainous region covered in lush greenery. Haiyan, still catching her breath, pointed ahead. Do you see that? That's where the boss monster of this rift is. Boss monster? Seo asked. Yes, she replied. Have you heard of the Karselian? A giant, 20-meter beast resembling a wyvern. She glared at him. Don't even think about it. Taking it down requires at least 3 S-rank heroes. Seo's eyes narrowed. Is that the one with the Sang grade magic stone? Her lips tightened. That's right, it's an imaginary grade stone, the second highest grade there is. Are you even listening to me? Haiyan's voice rose in disbelief. You're not seriously thinking about taking it on, are you? I didn't bring you here for something so reckless, she shrieked. What are you trying to do? Ahead, the ground shook. The massive shadow of a monster loomed over them. She was astonished by the scene before her. She wondered, what is happening right now? Hien Jian stood with a sword in her hand, ready to defend herself. On the ground, the monster lay unconscious, and she could hardly believe it. She thought, what just happened? Seo Dojin pulled a dagger from his bag. He explained that Karselian was incredibly powerful. Park Hae-il, a charismatic and highly recognized S-rank hero, was famous for hunting Karselians. Even he, during his first attempt, had brought 30 A-rank heroes with him. All of them were killed, and only Park Hae-il barely survived. Later, Park Hae-il gathered another S-rank hero and 200 A-rank heroes for a rematch. After a long and brutal battle, the monster shrieked in pain, and they finally managed to kill the Karselian. However, most of the heroes involved died in the process. Park Hae-il's mega guild, Sweet Life, still hadn't recovered from the aftermath, even 3 years later. She asked in disbelief, does he know he didn't contribute anything? She thought that if she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would never have believed it. That dreaded Karselian had been taken down by this man with a single strike. Seo then pulled out a blood-covered magical stone from the monster's body. He said he didn't need an escort anymore and would move on by himself. She asked if he wasn't going to take the Karselian's byproducts, its beak, claws, and other valuable academic materials. He replied that it wasn't worth the trouble. While leaving, he added that it was more efficient to use that time collecting other monster crystals. She could keep the byproducts if she wanted, he would consider them payment for her advance, but she didn't need them. Meanwhile, the other team members stood around their luggage in confusion. One of them said, "That guy borrowed a massive backpack, then came back with it completely packed full of magic crystals." Another asked, "Can you believe it? That much would take our guild at least 20 hours to hunt. Judging by the contents, maybe even 3 full days." She wondered aloud, who is he really? Hyan thought his speed and the sheer quantity of crystals were unreal. They all were amazed. If what Joanne said was true, he had taken down the Karselian without any notable gear or even a proper suit. That alone made him the strongest hero in Korea, or maybe even in the entire world. Seo Dojin kept moving forward with just a single bag. Even if he filled another hall like that, no one would believe them if they tried to tell the story. People would probably just call them insane. Seo said firmly, "Let me make this clear. Don't talk about what happened today. Not that anyone would believe you anyway." He chuckled, and the woman admitted, "I guess you're right." Then, Seo Dojin suddenly appeared beside them again. Someone whispered, "Those two are totally flirting, right?" Another replied, "Yes, definitely. I should have realized when Hyan Juan brought in some random guy. He's the kind of person who can stand next to Hyan Juan without looking out of place. They really do look good together. A perfect visual couple." But she thought, wait a second, this doesn't feel like flirting. It's just weird. That guy is kinda rough with Julian. Who even talks to her like that? He handed a bag to Hyan. She blinked. "Wait, what?" After that, he left without another word. Hyan frowned. "What is this? Did that guy just leave?" Without even saying goodbye, she pointed at the backpacks. "What about these?" "He just left them." Hyan explained. "He said if word gets out that he killed the Karselian, he'll become famous overnight, but he thinks fame is a hassle. He told me to handle it." She sighed. "Seriously, what kind of guy is he?" Amid the hustle and bustle of the city stood BHY Jim. Inside, Park Haeol had just smashed something in frustration. Someone whispered, "Park Haeol, he looks like hell." Park Haeol, an S-rank hero under the Korea Hero Association and Guild Master of Sweet Life, glared around. His bodyguard said cautiously, "Please calm yourself, Guild Master. You know what they say, the frog that crouches the longest jumps the farthest. The more you endure these difficult times, the greater your reputation will become." Park nodded. "You're right. That's the only way to strike back at the ones who look down on me." "Exactly," the bodyguard replied. "The more you build it up, the more power you'll unleash when the time comes. And when that time comes, they'll all be bowing before you, Guild Master." His manager chuckled. "Besides, who knows better how to conquer a Karselian than you, Guild Master? Someday your name will go down in history as the hero who conquered one with the smallest team in the world." The manager handed him a water bottle. "The Hero Association might even grant you exclusive rights to Karselians." Taking the bottle, Park said, "Of course. No one knows them better than me." His manager held a towel in his hands as Park added, "Compared to 3 years ago, our guild has shrunk way too much. Even so, I'm still the one who can capture that monster bird for sure." "Can I count on that?" "Absolutely, Guild Master," the manager reassured him. "Who else could do it but you?" Meanwhile, a news article was published showing a picture of Seo Dojin. A man reading it scoffed. "Seo Dojin, that punk?" This man was Kang Yongpyo, cousin of Kang Kyeolwoo, himself an S-rank hero under the Korea Hero Association. His manager explained, "Yes. A few months ago, hero Kang Kyeolwoo tried to get rid of him by dragging him into a gate. And instead of dying, that guy awakened." Kang asked. "Yes, that's correct," the manager confirmed. The client in that case was Hong Hee-ju, executive director of T Group and second daughter of W Group. Kang frowned. "A full chaebol princess. Why would she go after a guy like him?" The manager replied, "Apparently, Seo Dojin is her husband's illegitimate child. He was brought into the family at age 7, but 6 years ago, after Hong Hee-ju gave birth to her own son, he was kicked out." Kang smirked. "Even if he's related by blood, that doesn't seem to matter much in a chaebol family. So, how much did Kyeolwoo get paid for it?" 3 billion won, the manager answered. Kang looked at the golf stick in his hand. "And Kyeolwoo's a wreck now, isn't he?" "Yes," the manager said. "From what I've heard, not only was he beaten badly, but he's also covered in severe burn scars. He even lost his sight and is barely clinging to life." While practicing his swing, Kang muttered, "What a ruthless bastard. If it were me, I'd have chopped off his limbs and crushed his skull." The manager added, "And at the scene, there were rumors Hyun Juan helped Seo Dojin." Kang shrieked, "Hyun Juan? Why would she help him? What's her relationship with that guy?" "I don't know," the manager admitted. But thanks to her testimony, the police quietly closed the case. Kang grabbed his collar furiously. "Find out now what kind of connection they have. If there's nothing between them, then they must have made some kind of deal. Figure out exactly what it was." The manager nodded. "I'll look into it." Kang was so upset he snapped the golf stick in two. He thought grimly, sooner or later, Hong Hee-ju's people will come to me, asking me to finish the job Kyeolwoo couldn't. She's a chaebol lady, she won't be short on cash. Meanwhile, Seo Dojin was walking down a road. He thought to himself, just as I suspected, rift hunting is far more efficient than gates. But does that mean I'll have to rely on Hyun Juan to get in and out? Hien Julian had warned him, if you sell the Karselian magic stones, people will ask who caught them and whether you can prove your skills. The media will be all over you day and night. For now, I'll just store them. If your goal is to become famous, I won't stop you. So? What do you want to do? He replied, I'll have to find another way to access the rift zones. For now, I'll rest at the new house Huang Changseop arranged. When he took off his shoes to enter the room, he noticed several pairs already lined up. Inside, he saw his grandmother and little sister surrounded by men. His little sister rushed to him and hugged him tightly. He asked sharply, who are you people? One man stepped forward. Mr. Siu Dojin. I'm Prosecutor Park Chiaoyang from the Seoul District Prosecutor's Office. You know Mr. Huang Changseop, don't you? He's under emergency arrest for participating in an illegal high-interest loan operation run by Huang Changseop, CEO of HCS Capital. The day wore on, and inside the prosecution service office, Seo Dojin sat handcuffed to a chair, slouched forward. Out in the corridor, a man was speaking on the phone. Yes, don't worry about a thing. Both Huang Changseop and Seo Dojin are behaving quite obediently. He entered the room mid-call, thanking someone for even arranging his daughter's overseas studies. Please give my regards to Director Hong, he said warmly before hanging up. Then he looked at Seo coldly. You know why I became a prosecutor? To isolate society's trash from decent people. He placed a stack of files on the table. Photographs and documents spilled across the surface. Picking one up, he sneered, what the hell have you been doing all this time? The charges here alone would put you away for 10 years. He shoved a paper toward Seo. And I've already gathered more than enough evidence from Huang Changseop to nail you. Seo didn't bother looking at it. The prosecutor scowled. Look at this son of a bitch. Think you're bluffing me. Wait. His eyes narrowed. This reeks of Hong Heejo's doing, doesn't it? Who is it? Hong Heejo. Seo finally spoke. Judging by your attitude, you've already wiped out Huang Changseop's side. I came quietly to avoid trouble, but at this rate. Listen, punk, the prosecutor snapped. I don't know what you've heard or where you heard it. You think Korean prosecutors are pushovers. Seo smirked. Your life is finished now, you bastard. The prosecutor froze, startled by Seo's tone, then erupted in anger. What did you just say? He slammed the table and cursed at him. Before things escalated further, another man entered. Sir Park, please step outside for a moment. What? Park roared, his voice echoing through the corridors. He glanced at the paper the man handed him. Wait, isn't this broken? No, sir, the man replied. I double-checked. The equipment is functioning normally. Park's jaw tightened. Then how could the hero detector show him as an ordinary person? Does that make any sense? The man shrugged uneasily. Maybe the information about his awakening was wrong. No, Park muttered. The investigation was handled by T Group. It can't be wrong. And Hong Heejo, who the hell is this guy really? Inside, Seo sat chained but laughing. Now I see why Korean prosecutors are called incompetent dogs. Maybe I should just smash up this place and take Grandma and Yunyang somewhere safe. The door opened and Hien Jian entered. What are you doing here, Seo? He sighed. Not even sure myself. Whatever you do, don't act recklessly, she warned. I know this is frustrating, but if you use your power now, it'll only get messier. You planning to help me? Seo asked. Not exactly, Hien admitted. But I know you haven't done anything wrong. If I didn't know, that would be one thing. But now that I do, I can't let someone innocent be falsely accused. Seo chuckled. Is that so? Hien continued. The Hero Association will start investigating you soon. They're already keeping an eye on your fake hero license and the recent Mappo Rift incident. Seo frowned. What about my family? Hien groaned. Do I look like your secretary? Why would I be checking on your family? Relax. They're safe. Seo nodded. Thanks. I won't forget this debt. Anyway, Hien said, just endure it a little longer. I'll resolve this as quickly as possible. Her chosen method wasn't to simply prove Seo's innocence. Instead, she exposed Prosecutor Park Chiaoyang's bribery and illegal dealings, which led to his dismissal. A fair investigation followed, and it was confirmed Seo Dojin had nothing to do with the incident. He couldn't escape punishment entirely due to his unauthorized hero license, but thanks to Hien Jian's defense he got away with only probation. Later, news flashed across the entertainment system. A previously unseen monster has appeared in England, attacking civilians. This mantis-like creature stands 1.5 meters tall, has 4 eyes, and boasts incredible jumping power. Seo and Hien were in the car together. Seo muttered, that's a Macasian. Hien turned to him, shocked. What? How do you know that? It's a newly discovered monster. Only the association knows its name right now. Monsters aren't given arbitrary names, Seo explained. Magic stones hold not just energy, but information. By analyzing them, you can learn a monster's name. On Earth, science is used for this. In the destroyed world, magic was. So if the same monsters appear in both worlds, I'll naturally know their names. Hien blinked. Then how do you deal with it? Macasians can be easily handled with the fluid of the red flower ant, Seo said. Red flower ants. Harmless to humans, Seo explained, but their fluid is a powerful paralytic toxin to Macasians. Spray it, and they'll stop rampaging. Hien studied him carefully. Seo Dojin, who exactly are you? He ignored her. Are you even listening? She pressed. Seo leaned back, his eyes dark. What if I just killed Hong Heejo? Someone nervously chewed their thumbnail. A woman sat at the table, astonished and confused, while a robust bodyguard stood silently by her side. This is the situation now, she muttered. Hien Juan, why her? The man replied, it's not clear. What kind of relationship does she have with Dojun, and how does she know about him? She demanded. Hyun Juan, what's really going on? And what does it mean that Dojun isn't a hero? The man shook his head. I don't know how he knew. It's clear he awakened, but could he have some ability to deceive the hero detector? That's just our speculation. She shrieked. Contact Kang Yongpyo. Offer him 20 billion, no 30 billion. Tell him to start right now. There's no way I can do it for just 30. The negotiator chuckled. Tell her to double it. The other man looked surprised. Double. Isn't that a bit excessive? Nonsense, he snapped. From Hong Hee-ju's perspective, there's no alternative but him. And once the job is done, will 60 billion really be a problem for her? What's more, Han Juyan is involved now. If it's an S-rank opponent, she'll have to pay that much. The man nodded grimly. Han Juyan is definitely a dangerous opponent, but the negotiator slammed his legs against the table angrily. That bastard doesn't know shit. Does he think all S-ranks are the same? I could end a bitch like Han Juyan in 20 minutes. The others, intimidated, agreed quickly. He then asked, has the association replied yet? They said that due to local circumstances in the UK, the amount cannot be raised further, the man reported. The association already announced to the public that they're carefully selecting the hero to be dispatched. He turned his back with a snarl. They're making it impossible to even say no, as if it's worthless. Those association bastards are worse than thugs. When are they leaving? In 3 days, on a flight, the man answered. They've scheduled to move together with Japanese heroes. Japan, he muttered. Good. I plan to see Takashi anyway. He thought about the upcoming hunt. Macasians, new monsters whose weaknesses haven't yet been discovered. If I can figure them out, my stock will rise even higher. Cambridge, UK. He remembered the battle vividly. He and his team had pounced on the monster ruthlessly, fighting alongside others. The heroes struggled desperately to bring it down. One of them grew confused when he saw 2 identical monsters near the clock tower. The British heroes were throwing everything they had into stopping the Macasians from advancing south. But without clear information, they were helpless, and now the defense of Cambridge had collapsed. There were less than 60 kilometers left before the monsters reached the capital, London. The creatures howled in pain, or perhaps excitement, before turning their eyes upward at the helicopter circling above. From a distance, other heroes exclaimed, "Oh my gosh, it's real, Miss Han Juan was right. The red flower ant sap is working perfectly. Those Macasians can't endure it. She's incredible," but some doubted. There's no way this woman has that level of skill. What happened? Warriors readied their weapons. They leaped down into battle, Hyun Juan at the front with her sword gleaming in her hand. An airplane passed overhead while reporters and media crews gathered at the entrance, cameras flashing and rolling. One man said, the press is everywhere, as expected of Yen Juyan. She was by far the best hunter during the UK expedition. She figured out the Macasians' weakness and literally became a hero. She saved Britain from despair. She's a true hero. It said the British royal family will knight her. Another shrieked excitedly. Her footsteps approached, her appearance glittering under the lights. Please look this way, reporters shouted. How did you figure out the Macasians' weakness? Mr. Kang Yongpyo, please say something! We heard you killed the most Macasians in this expedition. The news broadcasted live. A group of 200 people, including hero Hyun Juan, has returned home today. As you all know, the brilliant performance of our Korean heroes has saved England. The key to Macasian hunting was the sap of the red flower ant, which was sprayed into the air. A large image of the insect appeared on the billboard. In the crowd, Seo Dojun stood silently, watching. His gaze lingered on the giant screen where Kang Yongpyo's face was displayed. Inside the restaurant, people were busy chatting among themselves, while 3 gift bags lay on the table. A voice told the man who was sitting with a coffee mug in his hand that the gift placed there was meant for him. Looking surprised, he asked what gift she was referring to. The woman with purple hair, who sat across from him, explained that the gifts were for Yin Young, for Grandma and for him, addressing him as Mr. Seo Dojun. When he picked up the bag and began opening it, she interrupted, telling him he should wait until he was home before opening it, but by then he had already taken the gift out. Looking at the clothes inside, he remarked that they seemed expensive. Smiling while holding her coffee mug, she told him it was her way of rewarding him, saying that thanks to his help, she had become a hero. She added that compared to the assistance she had received from him, the gift was small, and then casually asked if he needed a car, saying she would buy one for him. He looked hesitant and replied that he would let her know when he needed it, reminding her that he too had received help in return. The woman then asked if he would tell her how he knew about the weakness of the Macasian if she questioned him directly. Dojun in return asked whether there was any reason he should answer that. With a sigh, the woman shifted the topic and asked him what his plans were for the future. She had not expected an answer like world peace from someone like him, but if he ever targeted Hong Hee-ju or Kang Yongpyo, the consequences would be severe, and she felt she would need to stop him. He began speaking by saying that, first of all, he thought he would buy a house. She then asked whether the place he currently lived in was rented. Meanwhile, outside the cafe, people were roaming about and laughing, while inside a pool nearby, women were playing with a ball and laughing freely. A man was also in the pool with 2 women beside him, one of whom held a glass of wine. Watching the purple-haired woman, Dojin thought to himself that Han Julian seemed strangely different from before, as she also knew about the Makashin's weakness. It appeared to him that she was still hiding how she had obtained such knowledge. Later, while seated in an airplane with her eyes covered by blinders, the same purple-haired woman was asked by someone what exactly was going on with Seo Dojin, aside from the issue of the Makashin. Pretending not to understand, she asked what he meant. The man sitting beside her pressed further, asking whether Dojin had really taken down a prosecutor by smashing his head. She replied that Chiolwoo had also been there when Seo Dojin had done it. At first she stayed quiet, then pulled her blinder up slightly to reveal one eye and explained that it had been Kang Chiolwoo who had started it in the first place, asking if the gate murder attempt had not ended in failure. She added that even on the day of their fight, it had been Kang Chiolwoo who had started the conflict. The man laughed in an unsettling manner and admitted that it was true Chiolwoo had acted foolishly, blinded by petty gains, but reminded her that Chiolwoo was still his cousin. He went on to say that, regardless, it gave him a justification to take revenge on Seo Dojin. She looked at him, closed her eyes again, and stated that he could do whatever he wanted, as she had no intention of interfering. The man seemed surprised at this and thought that perhaps the relationship between the two of them was not as close as he had believed. She adjusted her blinders again and calmly stated there was no reason for her to get involved anyway. As he poured wine into his glass, he recalled how clearly she had said she had no need to interfere. Taking a sip, his expression tightened, and in a resentful tone he muttered that there was definitely something unusual about Seo Dojin. Meanwhile, in England, the Shrewsbury area of Long Sutton had been devastated by a recent monster wave. The British Hero Association was working to secure as many mana stones as possible before the arrival of the second wave. Numerous heroes were being sent into the rift. Among them, two heroes stood together discussing the situation. One of them commented bitterly that if only they had the extract of the red ant flower, even D-rank heroes like themselves would be capable of taking down the Makashin. The other agreed, adding that if only the wave had been blocked earlier, this place could have served as a reliable supply of mana stones. He further explained that once a wave occurred in a region, it could no longer be gated. He then mentioned that he had heard that during the second wave, a different kind of monster would appear instead of the Makashian. The first man replied that it was indeed terrifying because no one knew what kind of creature might emerge, and he had even heard of entire countries being destroyed as a result. Suddenly, he stopped mid-sentence, looking shocked. The second man asked what was wrong, and the first one said it felt like someone was coming out. The second questioned whether he was suggesting that the assault team that had entered earlier was already returning, pointing out that it had only been 5 hours. He told him to stay alert and keep watch carefully, since ordinary people who were after mana stones were sure to appear. Both of them were stunned when they saw a man emerging. They shouted that he was neither a hero, a deputy commander, nor even a hunter. One urged the other to quickly contact headquarters. The man who had appeared stretched out his hand and tossed strange green rings toward them. They tried to evade the attack, and one of them hurled 3 knives, but the attempt was useless. The scared man sneered that their efforts were too weak. Clenching his fist, he sent the rings flying toward them again, and they collapsed groaning in pain. Reaching out with a long nail-like finger, he scratched at the barrier, and a figure of 1926 degrees appeared. Looking uneasy, he muttered that in that place's time it had already been 10 years, and yet he had not even reached 20%. He wondered if he had failed even after initiating a dimensional rift, and decided that for the moment he would have to focus on increasing his mana first. The two heroes lay battered on the ground, and one of them weakly asked who he was. Smiling coldly, the man replied that before anything else he supposed he would start by wiping out those who were as weak as insects. It was in Paju, South Korea, where Dojin stood upon a grassy field and noticed something unusual. Monsters were scattered around that area, and as his gaze shifted, he spotted a hole in the ground. Leaning forward, he peered inside, placing his hand on the earth to sense what lay beneath. He counted and calmly stated that there were 26 of them within a 100-meter radius. Raising his hand, he summoned a fireball that ignited from his fist, a smile forming on his face as he wondered aloud how many would manage to survive. With that thought, he aimed his hand toward the hole, releasing the flame. It rushed inside, forcing the monsters out with the fire, and they shot upward, flying above his head. Watching them scatter, he continued smiling. Elsewhere, within a grand building, a man with a white beard sat holding a mug in his hand as he asked what sort of person this Dojin was. A man wearing glasses responded that he was a troublesome young man who was not easy to deal with. Looking down at the paper in his hand, the man in glasses then explained that they had received confirmation proving that Dojin was, in fact, a hero. Across from him sat another bespectacled man, Min Honggi, deputy director of the Korea Hero Association. The bearded man asked whether the hero measuring device had really declared him to be unmeasurable. The deputy director answered that no clear reply had been given about that matter yet. At that point, another man, Park Sungchul, the vice president of the Korea Hero Association, interjected sharply, shouting that Dojin was an insolent brat and that when the Hero Association asked something, he was obliged to answer fully. The bespectacled man intervened to redirect the discussion, saying there was one more matter to consider. The bearded man asked if he had uncovered anything else. The reply came that it was nothing too extensive, but the entire situation had originated from a malicious plan orchestrated by hero Kang Cheol-woo. Seo Dojin, who had awakened during the near-death gate incident, had later exacted revenge upon Kang Cheol-woo and even managed the newly appearing monsters in Mappo by himself. Though some of his actions had been excessive, the undeniable conclusion was that Seo Dojin's strength was overwhelming. The bearded man folded his arms across his chest and remarked that Dojin was like a wild horse, difficult to control, but at least his loyalty seemed unquestionable. He pointed out that Dojin had requested an official hero license and revealed that he himself was serving as guarantor, suggesting they skip the standard procedures. Someone asked what he meant by guarantor and if he referred to someone within the association. The bespectacled man clarified that Dojin had mentioned Hyein Juyeon, the S-rank hero. At once, everyone present in the room grew attentive. Dojin, meanwhile, now stood with a license card in his hand that read, 8th S-rank hero in Korea. Sitting beside the remains of the monsters he had slain, he murmured to himself that thanks to this license, he could now hunt freely in rift zones, and that it was not such a bad outcome. Back in the meeting room, the bearded chairman laughed, saying that Dojin had rushed into a rift zone as soon as he obtained his license and praising him as an amazing individual. The man with glasses began to remark on Dojin's extraordinary speed, but his words were cut short by the vice president, who looked shocked and demanded to know whether Dojin had truly entered a level 2 rift entirely on his own, without any guild members or support. He raised his voice further, accusing Dojin of being insane. Both the bearded chairman and the man with glasses seemed irritated by his outburst. The vice president then composed himself, smiling eerily as he addressed the chairman. He argued that if Seo Dojin or whatever his name was came back alive, the association should release his personal information and promote him on a massive scale, as he was now the 8th S-rank hero of the Republic of Korea. Someone interrupted, addressing him as vice chairman. The bespectacled man objected, saying that perhaps Dojin would not want such exposure, and questioned whether it would not be proper procedure to first ask for his intention. The vice chairman rejected this idea, calling it a frustrating thing to suggest, and addressing the deputy chief Min by name. He continued, saying that in unstable times such as these, the people would be reassured to know that another S-rank hero had appeared. He then turned toward the chairman, asking for his approval and insisting he was correct. The bearded man, who seemed to hold the position of chairman, remained quiet for a moment before replying that he understood both sides of the argument. With a resolute expression, he declared that he would go meet Dojin himself. Meanwhile, Dojin was still busy in battle, tearing apart monsters with the destructive flames he conjured. Standing upon a heap of their broken bodies, he looked down at his fist as the fire faded away. It caught his attention as he murmured that, as expected, the consumption of mana was no small matter, and he concluded to himself that he needed to obtain a weapon. At the Gaesan Hero Complex, inside a workshop, a young man sat with his arms wrapped in bandages while he idly played on his cell phone. Suddenly, the bell hanging at the entrance rang, announcing the arrival of someone. Without looking up, the young man told the visitor to state his name under the reservation. Seo Dojin walked into the shop and placed a bag on the table in front of him, explaining that he wanted to make a weapon out of what was inside. Glancing at the bag, the young man replied curtly that without a reservation, they would not take him, and advised him to leave and try another shop. Dojin looked at him steadily and pointed out that he did not even accept reservations himself, since there were too many requests, then asked whether this boy had been the one who had answered the phone. The young man continued tapping away on his game, sounding irritated as he reminded him that he had already said they were fully booked, that they had no time, and that Dojin should try elsewhere, since all the craftsmen in that neighborhood were top tier anyway. At that, Dojin grabbed him by the shirt and pulled him up from his seat. Intimidated, the young man demanded to know if Dojin was insane and asked what he thought he was doing. Dojin's eyes bore into him as he asked if he was the owner. The boy quickly replied that he was the owner's son. Fiercely, Dojin ordered him to call his father at once, telling him he had come all this way because he had heard the place was excellent. The young man turned around nervously and called for his father, saying that a customer wanted to see him. His father appeared wearing a suit of armor and removed his mask to reveal his face. He asked who had referred Dojin there. This was Choi Cheol-gwang, the master weapon craftsman. Dojin replied that Hyein Juyeon had sent him. Both father and son looked astonished, asking if Juyeon truly had referred him. At that, Dojin pulled 2 objects out of his bag and handed them to the master. The older man stared at them in shock, and when his son asked what they were, he explained in awe that it was the fang of the giant black fang snake, something he had not seen in a long time. Dojin instructed him to make something decent from it, preferably as long as possible. The master questioned what he meant by long, pointing out that Dojin clearly did not understand much, since with rare materials like that, increasing the length only weakened the strength. He suggested instead that he would craft 2 mid-sized swords. Dojin, however, asked if that was his way of admitting a lack of skill, and told him to fuse the 2 fangs together into a single long blade, while enhancing its mana absorption as much as possible. The son clenched his fists in anger and shouted that he had heard enough of Dojin belittling their abilities, declaring that his father could craft most weapons with at least grade 3 mana absorption. The master remained silent. At that moment, Dojin drew out a sword, remarking that it looked to be around grade 5. He squeezed it in his hand with overwhelming force. Both father and son stared, intimidated, as he applied pressure until the blade shattered into countless pieces. They looked at the fragments in disbelief, unable to hide their shock. Clenching his fist, Dojin stated coldly that if this was the kind of trash the master intended to make, then perhaps he should just quit altogether. The master stared back at him with a cold, unreadable expression. Far away, in a jungle-like area filled with flowers, plants, and a small pond, a monster lurked in hiding with its face partially covered. When its face was revealed, it was seen to be a one-eyed creature, clearly intimidated by Dojin's presence. With his hands in his pockets, Dojin waded into the water, remarking that the creature was still as noisy as ever. Flames burst from his hand as he attacked, and though the monster tried to dodge, he leapt again, striking its shoulder with a fiery fist. The beast, desperate, grabbed an entire tree by the stem and hurled it toward him, but Dojin cut it in two with his fire-forged sword. He slashed at the monster twice more, causing a liquid substance to spurt from the cuts in its green body, and then drove his sword into its back. The monster growled in agony. Dojin attacked its legs next, sending the creature flying through the air as it roared in pain. Watching the flames of his weapon begin to fade, he remarked to himself that, as expected, it was difficult to maintain a mana sword for long. Afterward, he retrieved a jar from his bag and filled it with the blood flowing from the slain monster's body. Looking at the dark liquid, he murmured that it was thanks to this that he had been able to bring down a cyclops. A faint smile crossed his lips as he studied his reflection in the blood-filled jar. Back at the craftsman's shop, Dojin placed the jar firmly on the desk in front of the master's son. The boy recoiled in terror, stammering as he asked what it was. Dojin instructed him to tell his father that with this, he would be able to connect the two black killer fangs with ease. Still trembling, the son repeated his question, stuttering as he asked again what it was. But Dojin had already turned to leave, ignoring him. From behind, the boy called out, asking at least to be told what the substance was before he went, but Dojin walked away without answering. In his thoughts, Dojin admitted that he had gathered all the basic materials, yet to truly enhance mana absorption he still needed something more. For safety, he knew there was only one place in the world where it could be obtained. At that same time, a pool was filled with people swimming and enjoying themselves. On a nearby phone screen, Seo Dojin's name appeared, indicating an incoming call. The purple-haired woman, wearing goggles, answered, her clothes still wet as she stood in the pool. Shocked by what she heard, she pulled her goggles up and asked in disbelief whether he had really said Brazil. People were playing in the pool while a man carried his drink in hand, watching them. Hyunjuian, the purple-haired woman, was sunbathing with her goggles on, and beside her lay a gray-haired woman who was also enjoying her drink. Hyunjuian asked whether the association had decided to send a hero to Brazil. The gray-haired woman confirmed it, explaining that she guessed the Brazilian government and the association had joined forces since they were working to close the rift zone on a large scale. She added, while removing her goggles, that the monsters on the Brazilian side were especially violent but yielded a large number of mana stones, and the salary from the association was decent, which was why their guild had chosen to go. She then suggested that Hyun Juian should come along and bring that man with her. Joanne appeared confused, so the woman elaborated, asking if the one rumored to be the 8th S-class hero among the ranks was him. Joanne admitted she was not certain. The woman pressed further, asking why she was unsure, since rumors had even spread that the two of them were in a special relationship. Julian felt defensive and asked what she was talking about. The woman suddenly hugged her and teasingly said it was cute since she had seen them sharing a Cocostrian drink lovingly. Flustered, Julian told her it was fine if she wanted to go, but admitted she was uncertain if the man would join them because she truly did not know. The woman, excited, tossed a wet ball into the air while Hyun warned her once again that she could not be sure about the man's decision. Meanwhile, the master craftsman stared at the fused fangs in disbelief, wondering aloud how Dojin had discovered that perfectly merging materials that were not even metallic could be possible, as if they had melted and glued together. He asked Dojin how he knew the blood of a cyclops could be used in such a way. Dojin stood with his arms crossed and a smile on his face. The master declared that he would try to craft the blade as long as possible, just as requested, and estimated that it could reach about 180 centimeters. Dojin requested that it be shaped into a two-handed sword, with the grip adjusted so he could also wield it with one hand, and suggested a weight of around 5 kilograms. The master thought to himself why Dojin was suddenly being polite when earlier he had appeared nothing more than a thug. Perhaps the weapon was truly that precious to him. Looking at the fused fangs, the master remarked that 5 kilograms would be heavy for one-handed swings, as it was not as though Dojin would swing it only once. Dojin insisted that it was fine and asked him to proceed in that way, then inquired about the time it would take. The master told him it would require at least a month. Dojin, however, murmured to himself, questioning whether a grade 7 could truly handle his full power, realizing that he still needed that special material. He asked the master to simply shape the weapon for now, and as for the process of enhancing mana absorption, he could take care of that once the material was secured. The master wondered if Dojin could truly manage to obtain such a thing. A few days later in a parking area, a black car was parked as Dojin stood beside it, expressing his gratitude and saying he would use it well. Hyeon Juian, who was next to him, dismissed his thanks, asking if she looked so small to him that he thought she was simply giving away a car worth 100 million won. Dojin replied that the amount seemed appropriate, causing Juan to blush. While he examined the car, she asked whether something was happening with the Hero Association. Dojin explained that since they were revealing his identity, he told them to pay the price. Juian, shocked, asked what he meant by a price, reminding him that Chairman Na Tawang valued fairness in every deal. Dojin opened the car door and remarked that it seemed the negotiation had been settled. Frustrated, Juian told him to behave properly, addressing him formally as Mr. Siu Dojin, and asked that he consider her position as his guarantor in his new employment status. Without responding, Dojin sat inside and shut the car door in her face. Stunned, Juian stood for a moment before getting into the car herself. As Dojin held the steering wheel, she fastened her seatbelt and told him that the association was currently in chaos due to the collapse of the Brazilian stronghold. She added that once the situation calmed, they could resume negotiations with the chairman. Dojin asked if she meant Brazil, to which she confirmed, explaining that they were planning to completely shut down part of the stronghold zone. Their arms brushed against each other, prompting Dojin to ask if she was going too. At first confused, Juian then admitted she was and asked why he was asking. Dojin requested that she go with him, leaving her flustered. Elsewhere, a man sat smiling eerily when an angry voice demanded to know how much more he needed. The man insisted it was not the time to be stingy, addressing the voice as Director Hong Heeju. The director retorted that he had already received 30 billion won in advance and was now demanding more, asking when he actually planned to begin the work. Disappointed, she muttered that she should not have relied on someone like him and clicked her tongue. The man asked who else would have accepted such a request. The director countered that there were many willing to kill without hesitation if paid. The man smirked, saying her information was outdated, and offered to give her some news as a freebie. He revealed that Seo Dojin was an S-rank hero, the 8th S-rank hero of Korea. Shocked, the director shouted, asking if this was true or some scam to deceive her. The man asked if she did not believe him, reminding her that it was paid information he had acquired, and said if she doubted it, she could simply wait until Seo Dojin blew everything apart. As he turned to leave, the director called him back, asking hesitantly if Seo Dojin was truly S-rank. Panicked, she admitted that she could not control him if it were true. Offering more money, she begged him to do something. The man smiled again, saying money was important, but what mattered more was the chance to become steady business partners from now on. The director shouted that whatever the case, he must ensure Dojin's death. The man lifted his phone before his face, paused and remarked that it seemed the heavens were watching over her, calling her Director Hong. She demanded to know what he meant, and he replied with a sinister smile that the perfect opportunity to kill Seo Dojin was approaching, showing her his phone screen. A plane was flying through the air as Juyeon sat in her seat. Online comments poured in. Someone with the username Jampong Punch said Operation Brazil was awesome, while another noted that if 5 rank FIs were going, it would be over in seconds. One person mentioned Jang Sango was also headed to Brazil, while another praised him for solo carrying his group to first place. Some accused Park Haeol of being money-driven, with one pointing out her guild had collapsed and she must be desperate for cash. Others mocked her, saying if she wanted to eat, she should work for it. Some admired Han Jian, calling her beautiful, while others noted Gang Yeompyeo's participation and speculated he must be receiving large payments. Another comment explained that in this mission, heroes would not even be taxed for spoils, particularly if they obtained magic stones, meaning even mid-tier heroes could hit the jackpot with a good drop. Meanwhile, Dojin slurped his instant noodles as comments speculated about him. Some asked who he even was, wondering if this was his rookie debut mission. Others thought he might be young but full of experience, making them excited about his skills. One comment concluded that if he was S-rank, that was all that needed to be said. Inside the plane, everyone sat in their seats as it prepared to land in Brazil. It was Sao Paulo, Brazil. Inside the Brazilian Hero Association, members sat gathered in a meeting room. One of them announced that the Korean expedition team had just arrived at the airport not long ago. The man seated in the power chair remarked that it was good news since they were the fastest among the requested countries. Another man mentioned that some of the heroes had even skipped their accommodations and gone straight into action. Hearing this, someone else commented that it was exactly what one would expect from the land of Pali Pali, the hurry-hurry culture. The first man then expressed concern, worrying that the Korean heroes might discover certain information. The second responded firmly, saying there was no such thing as an eternal secret, and at least until this mission was completed, they had to enforce strict control. The first man nodded, saying he understood, while the second sighed heavily. Brazil's national treasure, the hero Morias, had been defeated and killed by an unidentified being. It had not been a monster, as the black box footage clearly showed a human figure near the Santorum fissure. The man wondered in frustration what on earth had truly happened there. On the other side, a man stood in front of the heroes, briefing them. During the session, Julian quietly texted someone, asking where he was since the briefing had already begun. The reply came that he was still on the plane. Confused, she asked what he meant by that, reminding him that they had already disembarked together earlier. The person replied that he had transferred because his destination was further away. Julian demanded to know what destination he meant, and the answer she received, Santrum, left her shocked. She wondered if he had really gone to the most problematic Fisher Zone alone. Meanwhile, the briefing continued as the man in front explained that after 2 days of local adaptation, the heroes would be deployed in sequence to the requested Fisher Zones, pointing them out on the screen. At Bomb Hotel, a taxi stopped outside. Han Julian opened the door, entered with her suitcase, and sat in the back seat. Just then, someone appeared at the door, asking where she was going since the schedule had not even officially started yet. She replied that there was somewhere she needed to go. The man pressed further, asking exactly where, still holding onto the back seat door. Julian answered with a single word, Santarem. With that, the taxi drove away, leaving the man stunned, wondering if she had truly said Santarem, because even the Brazilian Association had advised against going there. At the Fisher Zone near Santarem, many heroes had gathered. Julian stood behind Dojin and asked why he was in such a rush, saying that at the very least, he could explain himself now. Dojin, standing with his sword in hand, replied that he had waited for her, and it was she who had arrived late. Irritated, Julian retorted that if he had said something in advance, there would have been no need to wait at all. She then told him to forget it and simply explain what he was after. He answered with 2 words, Blue Croco. She pressed him further, asking if that was all he could say. He replied by asking if he really needed another reason. For a moment, she stayed silent, then asked if he knew that she was 3 years older than him, calling him Mr. Seo Dojin. He asked casually, so what? Angered, she demanded that he show some respect to his senior since she had been speaking politely all along. Another woman between them looked clueless about the exchange. Dojin told Julian that she could speak casually with him as well and asked if she wanted to make things more awkward by insisting on formality. On their way to the Fisher Zone, the debate continued, with Julian insisting that was not what she meant. The other heroes whispered among themselves, shocked that he was handling Julian in such a blunt way. One asked another if it was really alright to just walk straight into a Fisher Zone like this. The other reassured him, saying that since Hero Hyan Julian was with them, there was nothing to worry about. The first acknowledged her strength but pointed out that the one leading them was still just a newbie beside her. Julian, hearing the word newbie, smiled and turned to them, saying not all rookies were the same. She added that if it was Mr. Seo Dojin, he might be the most powerful rookie of all time. The 2 heroes were astonished, asking if he was really that strong. As they all walked deeper toward the Fisher Zone, Julian asked Dojin in disbelief if he had come to shut it down. Dojin replied that he had no intention of closing it, since he had come all this way to obtain the materials inside and intended to extract everything he could. Jian was puzzled, wondering aloud what exactly he meant by materials. Suddenly, a massive monster appeared, swinging its claws toward them in attack. Julian shouted for everyone to focus and take their positions. Looking at the giant beast, she admitted nervously that it looked even more monstrous than in the photos. It was a massive blue creature. The 2 heroes in the back looked terrified, whispering that the fight might be too dangerous. Someone behind them told them to move aside and then unsheathed his sword. He remembered the master's words, that it would not be easy to retrieve the Blue Croco's heart bare-handed, so he had lent Dojin a treasured sword to help him gather the materials. Dojin drew the sword, swung it through the air, and charged at the monster. The Blue Croco tried to dodge frantically, but Dojin did not relent, striking at it again and again with fierce precision. Jian watched him, satisfied, and remarked that it was just as she had expected. The 2 heroes in the back stood in disbelief, shocked by his overwhelming strength. Under Dojin's relentless assault, the massive monster was eventually torn apart into pieces by his sword, while he stood tall, holding the blade. A fire had been lit in the woods, and the heroes were sitting around it in separate groups. Dojin sat alone, apart from the rest. In hushed tones, someone gossiped with another, asking if he had noticed earlier that Seo Dojin had single-handedly brought down the Blue Croco in just one strike, cutting through so many crocodiles that he had lost count. He remarked that it was simply incredible. The other man leaned closer and whispered that it was supposed to be a secret, but Dojin had also killed Castrian in the same way. The first man's eyes widened in shock as he asked if that meant Dojin had taken down that monstrous bird. They both agreed that Dojin was definitely not an average hero. Meanwhile, Dojin's attention remained fixed on the fragments of the Blue Croco's heart that lay in front of him. Juan approached and asked if he had managed to collect all of its hearts. Dojin replied calmly that the answer was in front of her to see. Juan wondered aloud what on earth he was planning to do with them. Her eyes then shifted toward the meat he was grilling, and with curiosity, she asked what kind of meat it was, since it certainly did not look like beef. Dojin told her it was Blue Croco meat and that it was actually edible. He even offered her some, but Joanne wrinkled her nose in disgust and remarked that they had brought enough food already, so why had he gone through the trouble of preparing that? Dojin simply told her that she should not eat it if she did not want to, before casually taking a bite himself. Another woman looked curiously at the meat and asked if it was really edible, pointing out that there was plenty of other food, so she wondered why he had specifically chosen that. Julian, still doubtful, picked up a piece with her chopsticks. The gray-haired woman asked her if she was truly going to eat it. Joanne replied that Dojun had said it was edible, and with that she placed the piece in her mouth. To her surprise, it tasted good. The gray-haired woman, smiling, turned to Dojun and asked what his secret was. Dojun seemed puzzled, so she clarified that she wanted to know what trick he had used to charm Juan. She went on to explain that Juan was so naive that she had never even had a boyfriend before, since she was not the kind of woman to easily give her heart away. Teasingly, she asked what dating trick Dojun had used that even made Julian try that strange meat. Dojun stared at her in disbelief, wondering if she had really just called it dating. A memory suddenly surfaced in his mind, flashing back to the time when he had been at the Imperial Academy before turning 20. He recalled Count Graine's daughter, Miss Graine, who had been in her mid-20s, as well as Lunia Leslian from the prestigious Leslie family, and finally Veronica, who had been his last refuge in that ruined world. The image of Veronica lingered until the sharp voice of the gray-haired woman snapped him back to the present. She was shouting at him, asking if he could even hear her, since she had been waiting for his answer. Dojun turned his head toward her and calmly replied that honey did not seek the bee. The woman looked utterly disgusted and declared it was the tackiest line she had ever heard. Then, with a mischievous grin, she slapped Julian on the back, causing the meat and chopsticks to slip from her hands. Behind them, Dojun sat smiling with another piece of meat in his hand. Meanwhile, in Sao Paulo, inside a dimly lit room, a man sat holding a wine glass while his secretary stood before him, briefing him with a stack of papers in hand. The secretary concluded his report, saying that was all for now. The man leaned back and admitted he could not wrap his head around why Jian had rushed in like that when the operation had not even officially started, questioning what she could possibly gain from it. He then added that with Seo Dojun and Jung In-ju's guild, Silky Fragrance Flower, heading together, he wondered if there was any profitable monster in the Santorum area. The secretary shook his head, saying there was none as far as he knew, and that even after inquiring in Brazil, the only response had been that the place was extremely dangerous. The man mused that anything involving Seo Dojun was always unpredictable. Before he could continue, his phone rang. He answered, realizing it was Director Hong, and asked what the matter was. Director Hong's voice burst out furiously, demanding to know if Seo Dojun was still alive and when he actually planned on working. With a smirk, the man asked why she was nagging again and if something had happened. She shouted that Dojun's father had seen the news announcing him as an S rank and was now telling him to return home. The man immediately stood up from his seat and muttered that even the chairman of the T group was stepping in, before asking if the director was truly that unsettled. She yelled back that it was not the time to corner her, and demanded to know what his plan was. He reassured her that they had finally gotten a proper partner and promised they would not disappoint her, all while staring down at a map. Opening the cap of his pen with his teeth, he added confidently that Seo Dojun would never return from Brazil. The director remarked with satisfaction that she liked his answer. He told her to hang up if she had nothing further to say. Turning back to his assistant, he instructed him to contact Takashi's side. The assistant nodded, saying he understood. The man then muttered that since Dojun had wandered into some hidden corner, it would be more convenient for them now. With that, he marked Santorum on the map. On the other hand, the hero expedition was making its way forward. Jian, glancing at the map, asked if they were heading into the jungle, since she had heard dangerous monsters often appeared there. Dojun asked what kind of monsters she meant. She answered nervously that she was talking about lynx. Dojun asked if that creature was here too. Juan immediately asked if he knew about lynx, to which he confidently replied that of course he did, and then he continued walking ahead. Julian muttered under her breath that she knew something like this would happen. She called out to him from behind, saying she would not stop him, but he had to wear something. Holding out a small box, she told him it contained earplugs. She explained that if he were hypnotized by Lynx's cry, his mind would become paralyzed. She handed him the earplugs, annoyed that he had claimed to know about Lynx yet still seemed unconcerned. Dojun told her he did not need them. She shouted after him not to underestimate the Lynx, reminding him that even the Brazilian Hero Association had warned that Lynx had to be approached with extreme caution. But Dojun simply turned and walked away. She called after him again, her voice echoing through the trees. Night had fallen upon the forest, and the expedition stood beneath the starry sky. From the branch of a tree, a fox-like creature with glowing red eyes stared down at them. The sight of it made the entire expedition freeze in terror. Julian's voice trembled as she told them it was Lynx, before she suddenly shouted at everyone to cover their ears. Amidst the panic, Dojun stood still, his eyes fixed directly on the creature. The lynx lifted its face toward the sky, preparing to let out its cry. Instantly, everyone in the expedition covered their ears, everyone except Dojun. Jian's eyes widened in confusion, wondering why he wasn't protecting himself like the others. Instead, he crouched slightly and picked up a few pebbles from the ground. Rising to his feet, flames suddenly burst forth from his palm, and with swift precision, he hurled them at the lynx. The creature let out a groan of pain, shocking the others, and in the next moment it took flight from the tree branch. The gray-haired woman exclaimed in disbelief, demanding to know what Dojin had just done. Julian, however, noticed something even stranger. The lynx's cry had abruptly stopped. But before anyone could catch their breath, the beast reappeared on another branch, its eyes glowing even brighter as they locked onto him. A strange dizziness began clouding Julian's mind, and she quickly realized something was wrong. Suddenly, Dojin's hands covered her eyes, and in a calm voice, he explained that it was not the lynx's cry that paralyzed the mind, it was its eyes. When he lifted his hand away, Julian stared at him in alarm, wondering what he was planning to do. He told her to close her eyes for just a moment. Then, drawing his sword, he swung it in a powerful arc. Flames erupted from the blade. In a low voice, he questioned himself if this was truly his limit. He invoked the Vandayan family's swordsmanship, announcing its first form, Kalita Milagro Rurkle. He described it as a miracle born from a single point. With a swift motion, he directed his sword at the lynx. From its tip, a blazing fireball emerged and shot forward. One of the expedition members gasped, crying out in disbelief at what kind of technique they were witnessing. Julian, her face pale, admitted that it looked extremely dangerous. Dojin did not stop there. He generated multiple fireballs from his sword, each one merging together into a massive sphere of fire that hovered before the lynx. Then, in an instant, it surged forward and collided with the beast's face. A blinding flash erupted, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. When the light faded, Julian could see Dojin still standing in place, his sword pointed toward the lynx's direction, while the entire passage between them had been reduced to nothing but ash. The lynx lay sprawled on the ground, its body bruised and blood flowing from its mouth. The members of the expedition stared in stunned disbelief, whispering that such destruction was impossible. Ashes floated through the air, glowing sparks still flickering around them. Yet the lynx was not finished. It struggled to its feet, blood staining its muzzle, and its glowing eyes locked once again onto Dojin. The beast tried to ensnare his mind with paralysis, but Dojin stood firm, glaring at it with disdain. He muttered that it was pathetic nonsense, for all he saw in the creature's eyes was his own reflection. His voice grew colder, laced with fury, as he declared that he would take the beast's eyeballs with him, since he had a use for them. Reaching his hand out toward the lynx's glowing eyes, his intent was unmistakable. Dojin stood firm with his sword in hand while Julian and her friend remained behind him, smiling faintly with confidence. The other expedition members whispered among themselves, their voices filled with awe, remarking that what they had witnessed was absolutely mind-blowing and beyond human level. One of them speculated aloud if Dojin might even be stronger than Chabri Alphonse. Another suggested that his strength could be closer to Cain Lester's level. Yet the first quickly argued that if he truly was on Cain Lester's level, then he would be the strongest hero in the world, which sounded far too exaggerated. As they continued walking, gossip carried among them, but the path soon brought new danger. From the surrounding waters, monsters began crawling out. Their growls echoed as their sharp teeth gleamed and their long nails scraped against stone and wood. One member, trying to stay calm, observed their behavior and noted that the creatures appeared oblivious to the atmosphere. Julian explained that it was natural since undead monsters had no brain at all. The monsters charged, but before anyone else could react, Dojin rushed ahead and struck one squarely in the face with his fist. The sheer force of the punch tore the monster's head from its neck and shattered its bones. The others stood frozen, amazed at his raw power. Afterward, as the group pressed forward, someone suddenly muttered about swordsmanship. Curious, Dojin turned to see who had spoken. It was Julian, who questioned him intently about where he had learned that particular swordsmanship, the one in which the red points scattered like sparks, making a distinct pabapak sound. Dojin fell silent for a moment, recalling the memory of the technique. He asked her why she wanted to know, and whether she was interested in learning it herself. To his surprise, she exclaimed in disbelief, asking if she truly had the chance to learn something like that. He thought to himself that in such a peaceful world, there was no reason for her to wield such techniques. He asked her aloud when she would ever use it if she learned it now. Inside her mind, Julian shouted in frustration, thinking there was a limit to how much someone could be ignored, especially when she herself was also an S-rank hero. Determined, she stated that she wished to use it at least once before her death and demanded if he truly had no intention of teaching her. When Dojin remained quiet without giving her any answer, she turned away, remarking that she understood what he thought of her. Inwardly, she reflected bitterly that, in the end, everyone here was simply playing around. Her friend then urged the group to exit the fracture. The members agreed and began to move out. As they walked, Julian's friend thought quietly to herself that it was thanks to Dojin that they had cleared this place without any casualties. The next time they entered to close the fissure entirely, their time would surely be shortened. But just as they were about to leave, strange voices echoed through the air. One voice roared a threat, promising to kill someone. Another voice followed, filled with anger, demanding to know who dared to interfere. Julian's friend caught the tone and wondered if the language was Japanese. The group quickly grew alert. One member began to identify the voice, but his words cut off midway. In that instant, Dojin stepped behind Julian and pulled her closer toward him protectively. Ahead of them stood a group of Japanese men wielding weapons, led by none other than Ryoma Takashi, an S-rank hero from a yakuza background and the guild master of Tegoku. He approached Dojin with a wicked smile, remarking that he had come to enjoy himself with Juyeon, but Dojin had gotten in his way. Rage flashed across Dojin's face as he warned him to get lost before he smashed his face. Takashi only sneered, declaring that he would kill him. Dojin mocked him, saying that his companions did not seem to hold him in much regard. Juyeon, confused, asked in surprise if Dojin could speak Japanese. He answered brusquely, clarifying that he had studied it. Takashi grew irritated, demanding to know what he had just said and hurling insults at him. One of his guild members then shouted angrily, ordering Dojin to bow his head and apologize to their master. The man scoffed at Dojin's ignorance, asking if he even knew who he was speaking to, and then attempted to introduce Ryoma Takashi. But Dojin dismissed him coldly, saying he had no interest in telling him to leave. At that moment, Juyeon's friend realized the gravity of the situation. Tegoku was one of Japan's top 5 guilds, and Takashi was infamous for his thuggish temperament due to his yakuza roots. No matter how strong Dojin was, a direct clash here could spiral into a disaster, so she hurried forward and urged both sides to calm down. The Japanese men sneered, telling her this was not a place for a woman to interfere. She froze for a moment at the word woman, stung by their tone. The rest of Takashi's guild grew furious, shouting insults, even calling them monkeys, enraged by what they perceived as disrespect toward their leader. Finally, Juyeon's friend snapped and demanded everyone stay quiet. Dojin, however, stood in silence, his fists clenched tight. She formally introduced herself as Jong-in-ju of the Republic of Korea's Silk Fragrant Flower Dance Guild, insisting that it would be wiser to settle things peacefully. Takashi mocked her, dismissing her guild as unheard of and irrelevant. With a lewd smirk, he taunted her, asking if she also needed a man and suggesting her turn would come soon enough. Without hesitation, he grabbed Juyeon's arm. Dojin instantly stepped in front of her, shielding her. Takashi told him to move aside and swung a punch at his face. He declared that he had business with Dojin too, promising to kill him later so he should remain crushed in the meantime. But Dojin's instinct sharpened. He realized this was a calculated provocation. With a fierce counterattack, he struck Takashi across the face with such force that blood spilled from his mouth, sending him flying into his own men. The guild members were caught off guard, unprepared for such an overwhelming strike. Dojin turned back, warning everyone to step aside, and asserted that since they had struck first, this was now self-defense. The Tegoku guild members drew their weapons in response, ready to swarm him, but Dojin declared it would be a one-on-one duel, dismissing them as small fries and ordering them to clear the way. Takashi rose to his feet, fury burning in his eyes. With deliberate menace, he removed his shirt, revealing a massive muscular frame, and commanded his guild to stand back. Juyeon glanced at Dojin anxiously, while Dojin's expression remained cold and unshaken. Clenching his fists, he reminded himself to kill this man only halfway as he stepped forward, ready to face him head-on.